This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, January 9th, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of solid radio, solid information, unbiased, uncensored news, information, and analysis that you need to know. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented in a multi-dimensional format. Folks, we do it in 3D. We look beyond the headlines and bylines, bring you the news behind the news. For new listeners, we've heard from from many today, for reasons that I'm sure many already know. We've heard from so many people, from Morocco to Central America to South America to actually a couple in the Middle East, one from Jerusalem, two from Alaska. That's, of course, in the United States. Numerous people all across the United States and all across North America. We want to thank you for checking in. Too numerous to mention. Folks, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There, tune in to the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Spell it all out. 2 N's, and, of course, you've got to spell the word and. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you for your belief, your trust in us as we walk through this intense minefield together. I've got to tell you, it is tonight's episode is brought to you by Audible.com. That's Audible.com. Folks, using our special code, you get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/ and this is important, /CFP radio. You get over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android. It doesn't matter what you use. Definitely take advantage of it. That's audibletrial.com /CFP radio. With that, welcome, Joe. It's great to be here.
We were
frenzy before the show.
We were trying to switch out computers for my father here before the show, as his old one, as he said, is turning into a paperweight fast. So we have a Mac, which we brought over. We unhooked this computer, hooked up the Mac, and spent the last hour trying to figure out why we could not get sound through the microphone. And that is unresolved. We kind of had a fast solution using a laptop, and we're going to have to spend tomorrow figuring out the problems. But
Apollo 13, here's the problem, and here's what you have to work with. Of course, no lives are at risk, but that's what it was, with the duct tape and the plastic cups and tin cans and all of that. So
but it seems like that he's saying, it's always some kind of problem, and it is when we are attempting to fix or change things that we operate with, our computers, our sound systems, a mixer board, a headset, or a microphone, minimum 2 hours, no matter if it's hooking up a USB drive and that's it. Or look, we hooked it up to the Mac. It didn't work for an hour and a half. We were trying to get it work. We hooked it up to my computer, 2 seconds, boom, it was done. Maybe we just don't understand the Mac system.
Yeah, I got to say, there's a pretty heavy learning curve to that.
Yeah, but it was fun. We do have a lot of news to get into tonight. We're going to start with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is going to be, there's an update here. The United States Senate Committee on Finance, the Finance, Ways and Means Leadership Team, up to craft a bill to deliver trade deals that boost U.S. exports, create jobs. This is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And they're talking about introducing legislation that will establish strong rules for trade negotiations and congressional approval of trade pacts to deliver the trade agreements that boost U.S. exports and create American jobs. The Bipartisan Congressional Trade Priorities Act of 2014 establishes a 21st century congressional negotiation objectives and rules for the administration to follow when engaged in trade talks. This TPA legislation is the TPP legislation, and we're going to get into that and what is going on. And
I got to tell you, it's very important stuff. No one's covering this.
Yeah, it says that a vital tool as the U.S. continues Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, as well as a free trade agreement talks with the European Union. The two trade deals offer the U.S. landmark opportunities to boost exports. Now, I could be wrong. I don't remember when the last time we passed or went through a trade agreement, but NAFTA and GATT, those trade agreements were detrimental to the U.S. economy. and those were done during the Clinton years with Newt Gingrich as Speaker, and we're still seeing the effects of both of those trade agreements on the American job markets, middle class, lower class, being affected heavily, or a severe rise in unemployment, a severe rise in, we have the health care legislation that is really taking away. I have a friend who's a local corrections officer at a local Altoona prison, and he was explaining to me how when he first started there, he was working a lot of hours, and he gets a paycheck every 2 weeks. We're talking, maybe 120 hours for every 2 weeks, and now he's down to 59. It's constant, 59 hours every 2 weeks, and the healthcare, even though it's not under being implemented yet, this certain aspect of the individual mandate, and other things, the under 30 hours a week is being implemented where he works, and he was telling me the difference in money that he's able to make and provide for his family, that he's going to have to get a second job just to do that. And it's not just him. I'm sure there are people all over the country going through the same problem with this legislation, from the Health Care Act to now the partnership agreements to everything else that is killing the economy.
Exactly. Sorry for that delay. I've got 2 mice. What do you call them?
Mouses?
Mouses.
You have 2 computers going. You have actually 3 going there.
Yeah, I do, and I'm not good. I'm not good at dealing with multiple things. Focus. I like to focus. Anyway, but this is a big deal. This whole thing with Obamacare, with the Affordable Care Act, it's already destroyed our economy.
What's left of it?
Well, it's already, I shouldn't say destroyed our economy. Let me be a little bit clearer. It's already destroyed the healthcare industries, the insurance part of the healthcare industry. It's going to destroy the other part of it as well, with respect to the physicians and the system itself. But it's already tanked the infrastructure. Folks, it's very important that this is what it was designed to do, because the move is going to be to a single-payer system, a socialistic system.
Stated openly by the administration.
Right. And it is happening so quickly. There are people out there, of course, you've got, if you're a business owner, you know what I'm talking about. You could take your taxes to your accountant. He files them quarterly, perhaps, or whatever. There's so much confusion with respect to the taxes. It's just incredible. I still hear people, and it really just absolutely astounds me, people saying, well, this was a bill that should have originated in the House. It did not. It originated in the Senate. Therefore, Judge Roberts, the esteemed judge that he is, really gave America a gift. And that's by saying it's a tax.
You remember all those articles, all those people, or maybe not all those people, but I would say there was a majority, at least when that ruling came down from Judge Roberts, that were the majority didn't really understand what was happening. And there was a small minority of people saying this was, he was a genius for doing what he did. Let me tell you something. The administration doesn't care if it's called a tax, a fee, pick a word for that suits that definition. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He did not vote against it. There's no
I love that too.
Down the road, it's not like something they can just put a stop to. They gave the go ahead. They gave the nod to go ahead and allow the Affordable Health Care Act to be implemented, and even back to the confirmation hearing of Judge Roberts that we still have the audio clip for, when Joe Biden was questioning him about the microchips being implanted in people.
Of course, that was taken out of context. So, we get emails like this. Oh, that's taken out of context.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a human being to track their every movement? You will rule on that. Mark my words. I don't know how that can be taken out of context, but
well, you didn't hear the beginning and the the parts before and after. You see that's the argument too.
Well, that's a very weak argument.
But yes. So the Affordable Care Act continues to wreak havoc in the economy, and of course we must watch that. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is being pushed through in an incredible way. This is going to change everything, and of course the Pacific Rim countries, United States, Canada, and the Pacific Rim countries, the Rim Pack, they're all involved. China is inching its way into that.
Yeah.
You've got also too. I just want to expand on a couple of headlines here. You've got the Chris Christie debacle. Somebody had sent me an email saying that I was sticking up for Chris Christie. No, not at all. I'm not a Christie fan. I'm not a Christie man. I'm no one's man. Sam, I am. Reading Dr. Seuss today. No, I'm not. What I was saying yesterday, just to be clear, was as the story was breaking, I just wanted to assail him, if necessary, on the authenticity of the evidence. It's one thing to say that he is responsible for this. It's another thing to prove it. And although I have no doubt in my mind that, in fact, he's behind it, ultimately, I just wanted to see the evidence because we did not have it at our hands. But it looks like now Christie is the guy behind it, at least his top aides. And I got to tell you something. If the top aides knew about it, chances are Christie knew about it. Top aide was fired, and of course, I'm sure it went something like this. This is my professional opinion. Hey, go ahead and do it. You get caught. We get caught, however, it's your skin. It's your hide. And that's just me. That's what I think happened. I don't know about you. But if that's the case, and should anybody be surprised, Joe? I mean, it's thugs, it's mobs, whether it's Washington, New Jersey, or whatever state. We're being run by the mob. It's crazy.
The mob? They're just...
Well, actually, the mob probably has more ethical standards than the government people do. And that's not to elevate the mob or the mafia.
Yeah, I mean, it's an agenda. It's not... It's a unification and continuity of agenda that has been going on for years. Even in this document we have on today's Trans-Pacific Partnership revelations, it says this: every president since FDR has sought trade promotion authority from Congress because of the job-creating benefits of trade. Renewing TPA will advance a robust trade agenda that will help American businesses, workers, farmers, and ranchers by giving them greater access to overseas markets. This bipartisan legislation helps meet the challenges of today's competitive global economy and will play a key role in getting our nation out of years of economic stagnation by spurring economic growth and greater opportunity. These words, it's constant here: greater opportunity, growing markets, growing global economy. But the results are always opposite. At least they have been historically with these trade deals, and this one is no different. It gives these corporations that, if we wanted to, say we started a manufacturing company 50 years ago, say you did, or your father did, and we manufactured cars, and we were here in the U.S., we expanded to maybe 5 major cities across the U.S. Well, through these agreements, now they can move these companies offshore to a place like China, pay half the money, maybe a quarter of the money they would pay for salaries, for benefits, because the working conditions in these other countries are not as the United States is. So many factories in the last 20 years have taken their companies and pushed them overseas. You have all this outsourcing, all the moving of this manufacturing and sector of our economy. And the people now, it's not spurring any economic growth here, these trade agreements. It's gutting our economic ability to grow. But for places like China or wherever these companies are moved to, that's where you see the economic growth. That's where you see the jobs. And it's not American jobs if they're moving them overseas, maybe only to the select few in the corporation that get moved there and choose to go. But, this is a huge issue. And now we have Janet Yellen. I don't know if you saw this article on Drudge from Time Magazine. Janet Yellen, the $16 trillion woman. And I don't know what $16 trillion are referring to. If it's the debt, it's a little higher than that. And it says, in her first and only interview since being confirmed as the Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen speaks in depth at the time about her outlook on the U.S. economy and the future of the Federal Reserve's controversial quantitative easing program, as well as what role she thinks the Fed should play or take in oversight, inequality, and unemployment. And what she said on the American economy was, I think we will see stronger growth this year. Most of my colleagues on the Fed's policymaking committee, and I are hopeful that the first digit of GDP growth could be 3 rather than 2. The recovery has been frustratingly slow, but we're making progress in getting people back to work, and I anticipate that inflation will move back toward our longer-run goal of 2%. On the housing market, which had been a brief lull this fall, I expect it to pick up, and I expect a further recovery. On the QE program, she said, a lot of people say this is just helping rich people, but that's not true.
Well, it does that, but it does more than that. Go ahead.
She continues, our policy is aimed at holding down long-term interest rates, which support the recovery by encouraging spending. And a part of the economic stimulus comes through higher house and stock prices, which cause people with homes and stocks to spend more, which causes jobs to be created throughout the economy and income to go up throughout the economy.
You know what? Well, if I can just expand on what you're saying here a little bit. Okay, you've got Yellen that's the head of the Fed right now. All right, now we're going to be talking about Janet Yellen tomorrow night, folks. You're going to want to really tune in tomorrow night. Kenneth Shortgen, I think it's how you pronounce his name, and Andy Sutton, along with V, tomorrow night here, right during this program.
I can't wait for that Ken to come on and say what his last name really is.
Oh, he's going to just whap me upside the head. I'm going to tell you for slaughtering his last name. But anyway, everyone's waiting. Everyone's saying, when are we going to see? You talk about the collapse of our economy. The U.S. dollar is a target. Folks, we're seeing the collapse. We're in the collapse. If you've got
But wait, the Canadian dollar is at a 2 or 3 year low to the U.S. dollar, which they're probably about even now.
See what they're trying to do.
They pumped up the value of the dollar.
That's right.
A few
They're
notches.
bringing everyone in. They're bringing everyone to the dollar. Everyone runs to the dollar. And when that dollar becomes super inflated, not inflated meaning inflation, but when that dollar becomes so great and such a great thing to be in, bam, they're going to sink the dollar. Now, let's talk what's happening on a global scale. And I'll just kind of whet your appetite for tomorrow night. The Eurozone right now, 12.1% unemployment on average. In Italy, the unemployment rate has soared to 12.7%. Karen, God bless you for sitting amid that unemployment rate in Italy. Now, these are actually the given rates. The youth unemployment rate in Italy, well over 40%, 41.6%. Now, if you look at Italy, their GDP ratio is going to surpass 140% here in the next 2 years. You've got Citigroup projecting that Greece, their GDP ratio is going to surpass 200% in 2 years. The unemployment rate in Greece is going to reach 32%. Now, these numbers might not mean anything to you, but if you listen to them and carefully, you'll see. If you're in Spain, for example, and you're looking to apply for a mortgage, well, it's interesting because the number of mortgage applications in Spain has fallen by 90% since the peak of the housing boom. Car sales in Europe, last year, the lowest ever recorded. And Deutsche Bank, remember me talking about Deutsche Bank? The most important bank in Germany is the most highly leveraged bank in Europe, 60-1 leveraged. Exposure to derivatives, you want to know how much? $70 trillion. So when this thing blows, it's going to blow on a global scale. This is absolutely incredible, just incredible. And you think that the U.S. dollar is going to be insulated from this? Absolutely not. Much
like the destabilization process in the Middle East is being done by our military and our intelligence communities, so too is
very much
destabilization of the dollar.
Very much.
And we're not going to be seeing, we're not going to be worrying about what are the unemployment numbers here when people are starving in the streets because there's no money to pay Social Security or disability, and the government shuts down these different programs. I mean, we saw from the last government shutdown the just remarkably unusual high number of regions of the government that were affected that never happened before in a shutdown. Things that the administration chose to shut down. It hasn't been that long. I'm sure you guys remember how the national parks, they started boarding things up and putting gates and fences up. Things that, kind
of like
Yellowstone.
The way Christie shut down the GW Bridge, Christie Company.
Yeah, unneeded shutdown, unneeded stress. And what's going to happen next time? What's going to happen if there's all these different possibilities of how we can be destroyed that we talk about so frequently, from an economic crash to a power outage nationwide. Things are not going to, if any of these things play out the way that people say, it's not going to be pretty here. And it's going to turn from I'm trying to get a job to I'm trying to scavenge around for food to survive. And people are going to go from, being upset about things to just killing you if you have a cracker in your pocket and they know it. The laws that and morals that keep us from doing things we shouldn't, all those barriers and lines will be erased.
There is a group of feral human beings out there. One needs to look no further than, look at Brooklyn. Remember that? I think it was a day or two after Christmas when a flash mob of 400 or so teenagers forced the shutdown of a Brooklyn, New York mall because, they thought that some rapper, Fabulous.
There you go, Fabulous.
Fabulous? Is that right? It's not spelled that way.
I've heard that before.
All right. Well, anyway, and then you got the 600-person brawl in Florida at the movie theater.
Was it? Oh, the movie theater. I know there's some brawls over tennis shoes or sneakers.
Yeah. So right now, today in America, there are close to nearly 50 million people living in poverty. There are more than 100 million people that are on some sort of federal assistance. Now, some deservedly so, some paid into the system. However, this is a direct attack against the middle class. It's an attack to disintegrate the middle class because they need to take out the middle class in order to create this dependent state. That's creating a dependent state is their goal. And the extended unemployment benefits have been cut for over 1 million unemployed Americans here at the beginning of the year. Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, and they said if I remember correctly, 1.2 to 1.4 million more in the next 6 months. Now there is legislation in the Senate trying to extend these benefits, which I have not read enough about to say if it's a good or bad idea, but we know that it's creating dependence. I saw statements from the president saying, people can't search for a job if they don't have money or something along those lines. Just something so abstract and not accurate in the way he stated that people can't. I'll have to find the quote, but
I really think it's important for us to take a look at what's really going on, and I do believe that the economy is really key to what's taking place, folks. I think
it is. Did you see I think it was New Jersey at an ice cream shop?
Yeah.
Was it 1,400 people applied for
1,600 workers or 1,600 people applied for 36 jobs. 1,600 workers applied for 36 jobs
at an ice cream stand.
No, an ice cream stand. This is an ice cream plant.
Ice cream plant. Okay.
In Maryland. Okay, so you've got Hagerstown, Maryland, if you want to be specific. So that means all those people that showed up, you get about a 2% chance of being hired. 98% of the applicants are going to be turned away. That's how things are playing out in every part of the country. And once again, the target is the middle class. And that's you, and that's me, and John Coleman, Dr. John Coleman, if you follow his works, he wrote about the attack on the middle class. Others are writing about the attack on the middle class. It's a plank of the Communist Manifesto. We need to take out the middle class before they can actually implement their agenda. So that's what's going on there, and it's really crazy. I mean, John Coleman he wrote a book called The Vanishing Middle Class. I think it was published. I've got the book right in front of me here. It was published back in 2010, August 2010. This whole process, by the way, came to fruition with the graduated income taxes and the implementation of that. Taxes are what Karl Marx called graduated income taxes, which in essence meant that through taxation, socialist transfer programs became much easier to put into place as a stealth transfer system. That's exactly what's taking place right now. Remember how the media packaged and presented Clinton to us as the people's candidate. But if you look at his cabinet, especially those he appointed, and I think this is when the attack on the middle class really kind of, in recent times, in recent memory, really took place. He appointed pretty much all CFR, Wall Street bankers and such to his cabinet. It's something that you would not expect from a people's candidate. It's the choice of the Eastern liberal establishment. And look back to what Clinton did.
And then, if we can, I have a 1-minute audio clip I want to play here. Then we have this: 80 New York City police and fire department officers charged with disability fraud. This is people in the NYPD and FDNY committing fraud on 9/11 victims because they are falsely claiming that they have injuries. Listen to this. It's over $100 million.
Well, they were hailed as the nation's bravest and finest, but new allegations say it was all a scam. Over 100 public workers, including New York City police officers and firefighters, are accused of faking depression and anxiety after responding to the September 11th attacks. Prosecutors say they were coached to tell military doctors that they were permanently scarred from the tragedy. But recorded phone calls and photographs found on their Facebook pages paints a much different picture. Take a look. You can see the former members of law enforcement living it up, fishing, jet skiing, golfing, taking joy rides on motorcycles, shooting some hoops, and more. Prosecutors say the men made everything up in order to collect Social Security benefits. The lawsuit alleges that some of them continue to work jobs on the side. They say the former officers are perfectly fine and have fraudulently benefited from hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. The lawyers for the accused maintain that the clients were suffering from mental health problems. More arrests are expected in this case.
So over 80 people arrested for deliberately defrauding the government and the actual victims affected by 9/11. And when you have police officers and the people in the fire department, over 80 people arrested by taking over hundreds of millions of dollars in false claims. I mean, these are the people that are supposed to be upholding the law, be setting the example. And this,
we were cases in Western New York. Sorry to interrupt this, but we were cases in Western New York, folks, where majority of police officers, they work hard, and firefighters that work very. It's a hard, very difficult job. But if you say you hurt your back and you're out there in one police officer, Western New York, claimed a back injury, debilitating back injury, receiving benefits from the city. I'm not going to name the city, nor I'm going to name I'm just not going to name the city in Western New York, but a police officer. We caught him dead to rights. He opened a business, and he was doing home inspections.
Yep.
All right. Now he's collecting compensation from a Western New York police agency. We have had hours and hours of videotape of him engaged in work. We had all the business documentation, and you realize we could not. The insurance company who hired us to do this and spent. I mean, we spent probably 100 hours at least on this individual alone. And do you think that anyone wanted to charge him criminally? No, not at all. And we're talking just
this is one of the most open and shut cases
yeah.
I've seen.
So this fraud is nothing new. It's just taken on some really ugly forms, especially when you take advantage of the 9/11 victims. And I'm convinced that there's so much trauma with the police and firemen on 9/11. However, that does not give one license to go off and create the situation.
Not at all. But this is a small example of a universal problem. We have people on benefits like food assistance, Social Security, Medicaid, all these different programs who legitimately need it. Then you have the people who don't have it that need it. And then you have, I would say, an equal amount of people who have it and don't need it, which is the problem. Those people are the problems, the people who are defrauding the system, who are taking the easy way out, I guess.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
And that's what is helping to accelerate these bubbles, these gutting of the Social Security money, gutting of all these programs, and why so much more money is being poured in there. There's no checks and balances of these frauds, and if there are, as you said, we had this one case and this guy was caught dead to rights, but there's no accountability when these people are caught in many cases.
That's right.
Many cases. I mean, we worked so many fraud cases. It'd be a shock to see what percentage of cases, no matter, I mean, you could have a guy in a neck brace in a wheelchair go to a doctor's appointment in the morning. In the afternoon, he's got a pickaxe and he's chopping up his sidewalk for a whole week straight. And you could go show it to a judge, and they'll settle. The insurance companies will end up settling. No criminal liability when you're caught defrauding the system. No, it's almost encouraged.
It almost makes you want to throw a television set in a courtroom. Anyway, that said, I don't know whether you folks heard this, and this is how word changes are taking place as well. We've got to watch the language being used by everyone. I don't know whether you heard about this or not, but Sheila Jackson Lee, she does not like the word welfare. She wants to introduce.
Like Redskins?
Yeah, this is worse. It's yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it.
Anyway, welfare, she wants to change it to Transitional Living Fund, and maybe somebody should tell her that a lot of times this is not transitional. But go ahead.
The Patent Office or the U.S. Trademark Department deemed the word for the Washington Redskins or something along that the Redskins are doing derogatory. And I don't know if you guys how many people have been following that argument that this word is not politically correct or a slur, a racial slur.
Seriously, Redskins, is it really that?
Well, I saw a good point. I mean, apparently there's something called Redskin potatoes that they're sold in the grocery store. I mean, you have
yes,
and it's just you don't see. And the argument that I've heard most often is you don't see any actual Native American Indians saying that this word is offensive and needs to be changed. It's all coming from bureaucrats saying that the word is a slang term and derogatory. Now, I don't care if they call them the Washington Redskins or, whatever, the District of Columbia criminals. Call it whatever you want. But, I mean, just this big bureaucratic mess. We're getting more bureaucrats, more government programs. They're encroaching on more of the private economic capitalist way of American way of life. And through the healthcare law, through many of these other laws that we've seen, they're taking over everything. The taxes are so high for people who are making money. The ways of producing jobs, producing money through small businesses, so much red tape is now strangling small businesses that they're being shut down left and right. They're being it's discouraged pretty much. The backbone of the American, I guess, would you say, capitalist way of life has been people produce jobs, people produce businesses through however they do it, and small businesses made up how much percent of employment? It used to be in the 90, 95, 90.
Well, right, but there's no motivation for anyone to
right.
Small businesses thing of the past.
Yeah, and we're seeing that the motivation, the incentive being destroyed for people to create their own businesses. It's like trying to get a gun and living in Chicago or a gun-free zone. All the things you have to go through, but it's just disheartening to see this Trans-Pacific Partnership and these other trade agreements. I mean, this country is going in the wrong direction, has been going in the wrong direction for so many years, and this is talking about this Trans-Pacific Partnership. It says, in addition, the USA is negotiating with Trade in Services Agreement with 50 countries covering 50% of the global GDP and over 70% of the global services trade. This agreement would create many opportunities for U.S. jobs in this critical sector. But just from everything we're seeing, the pumping, the quantitative, the amount of waste that we have in the government, the amount of spending we have, spiraling down a toilet bowl, and we're just waiting for that flush to happen. And we know it's coming if something else doesn't stop it from happening first or make it irrelevant beforehand. But our society, our way of life, whether you see it as good, bad, or are indifferent, is going to change, and people are going to have to learn how to adapt, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And
Yep. And right with that, they're taking away our rights to bear arms. If you look last week, and I don't know how many people saw this, there was an information dump last week. A lot of times political leaders will, or our elected officials, they'll dump things on a Friday or during the holidays, because most of the time that stuff is overlooked. Well, Obama launched his much-feared expansion of the use of mental health diagnoses to crack down on gun ownership. Again, this does involve the Affordable Care Act. This is about the centralization of information. Obama, Department of Homeland Security, they're already on the record of, if you are a returning veteran, a third-party candidate supporter, a constitutional supporter, if you've got a pro-life bumper sticker, for crying out loud, right-wing extremists or just plain extremists. IRS is targeting conservative organizations. If you're critical of Obama, if you're critical of the unconstitutionality of our administration, well, this is coming. Obama announced that the Justice Department is proposing a rule change that would clarify that being committed to a mental institution would include receiving quite nebulous outpatient services from a professional, like a psychiatrist. So if you go to a psychiatrist, for crying out loud, you could be tagged.
He just said he just wants guns out of the hand of dangerous people. Now, he's not saying who is dangerous, at least not in the comments I've seen. But yes, these mental health executive actions, executive orders, the laws, the push for this specific area of gun ownership, it's all unconstitutional. And you look at the federal overreach that has been ongoing for decades and keeps growing.
Right.
I'm seeing, I just did a quick search here on a government website where it talks about federalism frustration. And it says that, the state-federal relationship is at its lowest point ever, and it's beyond repair due to underfunded and unfunded mandates and infinite bureaucracy. And it goes on to say that, but this is false, because this has been the same sentiment that's been echoed through the past 80 years of the American democracy. And it goes on to say that the federal overreach, the Second World War, for instance, the states objected strenuously to the ultimately derailed plans to federalize state employment compensation systems, federalize regulation of motor transport, fix the salary of state officials. Anything that is turned over to the power of the government, the federal government is going to absorb it, and it is absorbing it. It's absorbing our economy. It's absorbing the ability to buy guns, expanding the Second Amendment that says, you have the right to own firearms and that right shall not be infringed, to, well, if you're a criminal, you can't. If you have this diagnosis, you can't. And this Obamacare, we always talk about how it's a system of control, and it is. It's so easy to see. Is putting up an interface to where the mental health, physical health, economic class of a person, and all this information will be accessible by doctors, and now you have bureaucrats getting involved, making decisions. Do you want a bureaucrat deciding what treatment you can get? Do you want a bureaucrat deciding if you have a reason to own a firearm and if you're a valid person and are able to own a firearm? I mean, this burdensome red tape and over-bureaucratization that we're seeing is going to absorb everything.
That's an interesting new word.
Yeah.
Okay.
You like that?
It's kind of like a quailism.
Yeah.
Okay, and I say that with love. But by the way, I did talk to Steve Quayle this morning, and he's doing well. Greg Evenson update doing much better. Pastor Bruce York is still I suppose the best thing to say would be he's in a coma still, a catatonic state. We're praying for him to recover, and but just kind of an update on people, and of course he's going to be on Sunday with Pastor David Langford. But one other thing too before we get to the end of the first hour, and I think we probably should announce. I'll tell you what, we'll take your calls, Joe. Unless you've got I can't see you actually, but
I object to call taking today. No,
maybe we should open the phone lines at the top of the hour.
No, we'd love to hear from. We'd love to hear from people. We got a bunch of stories that we're going to get into, from the bird flu to the militarization of police to we got a little bit of info on Benghazi, information and news clips on what is going on in Iraq and Syria. Also, we have an interesting survey on the Washington Times and an audio on the increase of martyred Christians. It says they've doubled since 2012 worldwide, and we're going to get into that.
Please let that sink in just for a moment. Okay, let's not go too quickly beyond that. The number of people who have been martyred for being Christian, think about that, has doubled
since 2013 from 2012.
So
a survey was done by Open Doors, a non-denominational group aimed at serving persecuted Christians, said Wednesday it had documented 2,123 martyred killings compared to 1,201 in 2012. Now, I'm going to send you this link in Skype.
It's absolutely incredible.
And we have a 7-minute audio for this, too, that we'll play later.
The audio tells a lot more and gives some good background. But why is no one talking about this?
Well, they are, but it's being done like around Christmas time. We saw the war on Christmas, which it was a war on Christmas, but the news agencies that were reporting it with that title were honest. It would have been war on faith, on Christianity.
Faith. Yeah, exactly.
It's not a war on Christmas. It is an ongoing war that doesn't stop after the holidays leave. I mean, we have this satanic monument trying to be erected. I mean, this disgusting display of a cult and demonic symbols of the devil and goats, and an interactive children satanic display at that. And they're trying to put this up, saying that if the Ten Commandments can be displayed, the Satanists have a right to display their whatever it is.
Well, there was even a recent decision by the federal courts, if you can just wrap your mind around this. In a public cemetery, there was a cross planter by someone. Now, I don't have, for those sticklers on the facts, I do not have available with me right now. I'm just doing this from memory, but a cross-planner was ordered to be removed from a federal cemetery because it could cause mental injury to those who would gaze upon it. Okay, it's crazy. I mean, think about that. And this is not new. This is actually, and I should point this out, this is actually a very, very evil marketing blitz campaign taking place, and it's been taking place for quite a while now against Christians and against people who believe in the Christian faith, who are followers of it.
Jump in here, because I read some of the same materials you're going over, and what it talks about in there in the beginning is about the study of psychology of people and their behaviors and how to adjust and perfect marketing techniques and different mass, agenda pushing through social media, through radio, television. They are using the psychology of people. They're using, they've created all these lines. We always talk about how this country and how the people are being divided. This is a way that they have been able to put up these dividing walls, is through the study of psychology, through human behavior. They know how to pit one person against another. And it can be as small as a thing as race. And it can be, maybe that's not small. It can be small as, like in high school, people who don't wear name brand clothes. When I was in school, people would be made fun of, and so they started to put uniforms.
You must have been the laughing stock of the school then, right?
Yeah, no, I just changed after I left. But we see this happening from even children are having to deal with, and when you're in school, I guess it's more.
Let me just, if I can, let me just
share
ahead. Something. I just thought of this. I remember, and folks, we were all young and stupid, I'm sure, except those who weren't. But if you were like me, young and stupid, I remember I was probably 25 years old, maybe 26, I don't know, married, children. And I got a call from my dad one night. He said, "I want you to come over to my house." Now, this is the house where I grew up. "I want you to come over to the house and pick up some things you left." I quickly went through my mind, what did I possibly leave in my house that I don't have? And I said, well, Dad, what is it? And he said, just come over, I'll show you. So I went over, and here he had a 6-pack of beer that I had hidden in the rafters. I think it was like 10 years before. And the dust was caked on it, and cobwebs and everything. And it was funny. It was funny. He put it on the table and he said, "So now I know what you were doing, of course." And of course I smuggled beer in, and with my friends, and you just do that when you're 16, 17 years old. But you know what? We never. We would drink a beer or two, and that was it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not trying to justify my actions, but I guess what I'm saying is we'd never go out and knock people out or go out and steal anything. It was that was probably the worst thing that we did. But it was funny to get caught when I was a young adult.
Right, and now you just see what kids today are doing. Back to this Christie scandal in the last 10 minutes of this. You see how the media has been reporting this. You see the constant headlines from CNN to Fox to MSNBC, everybody throwing their input in and saying, yes, if Christie has had anything to do with this, he needs to be held accountable. And why doesn't the media, these same people, these same agencies, have the same accountability standards for everything else, every other scandal or thing that we're seeing that is not right, like the deficit, like Fast and Furious, Benghazi.
Good point. Equity in reporting. How's that?
Yeah.
EIN. No, wait. That's EIR. Equity in reporting.
People are held under different standards. You have, and we'll just say, I guess, Obama versus Christie. I listened to a little bit of Glenn Beck today, and they were talking about how these people were progressives in Christie administration, and how they're punishing other people, and how Obama was the same with different things he was doing. But it's bigger than that. It's not about Obama or Christie. The standards of accountability fluctuate. We don't have in our laws, and everyone listeners can relate to this. When Dad, you had an article up when John Corzine was arrested or was stole that money from MF Global, $1.5 billion, and you put a picture of a video of a man stealing a CD from a store,
right? $10, and
it had his face smashed in by security or police officers.
It's still $10 and get away with it.
Right.
$1.6 billion.
Or no,
it's still $10 and you get your face smashed in.
Right.
$1.6 billion, and what do they do? They make you part of the interior or inner circle of friends in the Obama administration. And you know what? That would be Bush. That would be Clinton. That would be. They're all guilty of that.
Right. And we could just sit here and list the crimes of the government, the scandals, the waste. Point out all the points of waste, all the things that this man has done or has been done in his name, and from the closing down of businesses to the money from the green initiatives, like Solyndra, all the taxpayer money that was funneled out of those green companies that after they got these huge bailouts or funds from taxpayer dollars, they shut down. There's so many different points where we could, going back to Bush to Clinton. But no, they're not going to dig and investigate on Benghazi. You're going to see this Christie thing in the news until they have had enough of it, or the people have had enough of it. And back to a Newsmax article here. Majority of Americans believe administration lied about Benghazi. A majority of Americans surveyed believe the Obama administration lied to the public over the deadly attacks on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, according to a YouGov poll. It says 44% said the Obama administration deliberately misled the American people and claimed al-Qaeda did not execute the attack. 30% said the administration shared facts that, as they became available, 25% they were not sure. So 46% believed al-Qaeda was behind the attack, 16% they were not responsible, 37% said they weren't sure. Now, the administration has insisted the violent assault was fueled by an American-made video talking bad about Islam. And a recent New York Times investigation largely backs up that assertion. And it says those that were polled asked how President Obama and former Secretary of State Clinton handled the September 11, 2012 attacks and the aftermath. The president came off worse in the public eye with 46% disapproval compared to Hillary Clinton's 40%. And it goes on to say the U.S. Administrator to Libya, Ambassador to Libya, Christopher Stevens and 3 others were killed. The administration has come under fire from Republican leaders for not doing enough to protect the consulate leading up to the attack. Not only did they not protect it, they removed protection details.
Okay, and here we go with the words again.
Right.
It's not a consulate. It was a CIA operations center. And I know you're ladies and gentlemen, you're getting tired of hearing this from me, but Benghazi was a weapons running operation. It was exposed, and right now we are in a very, very dangerous time. If you go back to the caller, the intelligence insider that we had, when was that? Monday, correct? The last hour?
Tuesday.
Or
last
Tuesday.
half hour.
Last half hour on Tuesday. Thank you. He explains it. He lays it right out. Folks, if you did not catch the last half hour of Tuesday's program, please do so, because right now what we're seeing is the end result, the beginning of the end with respect to Syria. The new front now is opened in the Anbar province. We are walking away. We're signaling, Kerry, in Obama, they're signaling the al-Qaeda operatives to go ahead and to rearm themselves and to attack Syria from a new front. Putin, on the other hand, is not buying this, or he's very upset about this. Of course, why wouldn't he be? And if I can get to this, let me see if this cord will reach.
Well, yeah, in this article out of CNN from a Peter Bergen says that al-Qaeda controls more territory than ever in the Middle East now. It says from around Aleppo in western Syria to small areas of Fallujah, al-Qaeda now controls more territory and stretches more than 400 miles across the heart of the Middle East, according to English and Arab language news accounts, as well as accounts on jihadist websites. Indeed, al-Qaeda appears to control more territory in the Arab world than it has done any time in history. The focus of al-Qaeda's leaders has always been a regime change in the Arab world in order to install Taliban-style regimes. And I have a quick audio clip here, a 3-minute audio clip here. Radical rise of captives of Syrian al-Qaeda-linked groups are freed. Here's this audio clip.
Several hundred captives of a hardline rebel group linked to al-Qaeda have been freed in Syria. They were being held by fighters from the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, who are one of the most radical jihadist militant groups in the region. Let's now get more from RT's Middle East correspondent, Paula Sleer. She joins us now live. Paula, it seems this al-Qaeda-linked group is becoming more and more dangerous and poses a serious threat to even those who fight against President Assad. Please tell us more.
Well, certainly this group is looking as if the actions it carries out are increasingly horrific. There is video that is circulating of a terrible execution. The video is unverified, but it comes from the Syrian city of Aleppo. And what we see in it is people who have been killed by this al-Qaeda-affiliated Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, which is calling itself the ISIS. What we understand is that the people who are killed are reportedly from the Free Syrian Army, and there are also some journalists among them. As you see, they were shot in their heads as well as being handcuffed. Now this comes after these Islamist rebels captured the headquarters of Aleppo, and what we're witnessing increasingly is opposition killing opposition. The Free Syrian Army is certainly horrified by the rise of these radical rebels.
Oh, and that audio cut off. But you guys get the gist of this. The ISIS is what they're calling it, the ISIS, operating in Syria, where it established a presence in many areas of the Aleppo governance in the northwest. It says in August, ISIS launched a propaganda series on videos highlighting their activities in Syria, which included interviews with fighters, the graduation of a group of Mujahideen cubs, 7 to 10 years in age, from training, sermons at local mosques, preaching al-Qaeda's interpretation of Islam. And it says it goes on in this article from CNN to talk about how these different groups and al-Qaeda is expanding into different areas of the community. You know, they're killing parents of children and taking the children in as fighters.
13-year-old boys out there fighting.
Yeah.
We're doing this. We are doing this. The CIA is doing this. The American government is doing this. We're sending the children out to die.
Absolutely, and it's sickening. And one person in the comments section, says Saddam protected Christians and we killed them. Gaddafi protected Christians and we killed them. And Assad was protecting Christians and we're trying to overthrow him. And they make a good point because the region was, and maybe, I don't know about Saddam, I do not remember that far back as far as what he did or didn't do to protect citizens of his country. But I know that from what I've researched on Gaddafi that and Assad, that they kept a relative peace there. Not like today when you're seeing the doubling of martyrs, Christian martyrs. It is primarily in these Middle Eastern countries that we have overthrown and put in regime changes. And this is the reason, because these groups go unchecked and their behaviors continue to go unchecked, and they're allowed to get away with this. We're coming up on the break here. We're going to go to the break. But people, if you guys want to call in, 661-244-9839 is the number. We'll be taking calls for the rest of the show. And News in 2 Minutes, we have not been playing their News in 2 Minutes this week, as they have not been producing it. They're in the jungles right now of Florida, actually filming for their DVD series. They're in a very remote part of Florida in the Everglades, and I just can't wait to see their production product from that. So, wow. Yeah. So we will be picking them back up as soon as they are making News in 2 Minutes again. And we were to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this January 9th, 2014. We're going to be taking your phone calls and getting into some news this hour and for the rest of the show at 661-244-9839. Some news on the swine flu, or the pig disease that is going around. Cold, wet weather may help spread deadly pig virus, says the USDA. Now, a lot of folks, listeners who are in America, experienced this week probably what we've experienced here, which is a 100-degree temperature swing, or 60 to 80-degree temperature swings from minus 40-degree weather to 40 degrees. And climbing, we're supposed to hit, I think, 55 on Saturday here. This is the type of weather that really will spread this virus around. But in this article from Reuters, it says frigid temperatures across a large swath of the United States this week, followed by warmer conditions, could aid the spread of the fatal pig disease now in 22 states, affecting hundreds of thousands of pigs, a swine veterinarian said on Thursday. The virus likes cold and cloudy days, said Rodney Baker, a swine veteran at the Iowa State University at Ames, Iowa, the U.S. At this time of year, the viruses get frozen on clothes and shoes, making it easy to track around and spread, Baker added. This disease, which causes diarrhea, vomiting, and severe dehydration in hogs, has spread quickly across the U.S. hog belt since its discovery in April 2013. California and Wyoming are the latest states to report confirmed cases of the deadly pig virus, bringing the number of states affected to 22, says the USDA. The number of new cases increased by 134 for the week of December 29th, bringing the total cases to 2,084, according to the USDA's National Animal Health Laboratory Network. U.S. trucking industry targeted, it says earlier this week, several hog-producing states experienced double-digit sub-zero temperatures, and forecasters are now calling for warmer temperatures as highs climb towards 30 degrees Fahrenheit this weekend. Barker told Reuters that the virus can remain viable after a single, maybe even a couple of freeze-thawed cycles. Cold weather and cloudy conditions protect the virus, but the heat and sunlight will deactivate it, Baker said. The spread of the disease has heightened scrutiny of the U.S. trucking industry as livestock transport trailers are seen as a means of transportation. And the EPA goes on to state how not washing properly, not keeping sanitary conditions help really spread this virus. But we're seeing a lot of these this flu bug, the H1N1, in many different strains, be spread across the United States. And with this warmer weather, people do need to be careful, because this is, with the cold and the fluctuation between the cold and warm, is perfect conditions for this to spread faster than normal. And after this story, we can take some calls, but and I find this interesting. Now, you guys remember the last time we had an Olympic, it was 2 years ago, the Summer Olympics. In the last couple of years, or last couple of Olympics, there's been a lot of hype, or the false flag hype. Are they going to nuke the Olympics, and what's going on here? We've seen it for years now, from the Super Bowl to the World Cup to anything where people gather. We see this false flag hype. Well, we're having a Winter Olympics in Russia come up in next month, and there has not been hardly any talk of false flags, of things happening. But we have a report today, security alert from southern Russia, as there were bodies found in bomb-rigged cars. Russian authorities said on Thursday that security forces have been put on combat alert in the southern Stavropol region after the discovery of 6 bodies with gunshot wounds in 4 different cars, 3 of which were rigged with explosives. One of the bombs went off, but no one was hurt. The killings are further heightening security concerns ahead of the Winter Olympics in Sochi, which also lies near the Caucasus region, where the Islamic insurgency is simmering. Russia has already tightened security before next month's games, on which President Putin has staked a lot of political and personal prestige, and is on high alert after the suicide bombers killed at least 34 people in separate attacks in the southern city of Volgograd last month. The corpses were discovered on Wednesday in 2 separate districts outside the regional capital, a gateway to the North Caucasus, where Russia faces an insurgency by Islamist militants who have threatened to prevent the Olympics from going ahead. And it goes on to talk about a Russian spokesman. So the Winter Olympics open in Sochi on February 7th, where this is what the insurgents are targeting, these Winter Olympic Games, and that the Russian Olympic Committee has said no more can be done to safeguard the Games because every measure possible is already in place. Russian forces want combat alert in Sochi on Tuesday, and about 37,000 personnel are now in place to provide security at the Games, Russian officials say. So this is one thing to keep in the back of your mind as we move towards these Winter Olympics. We definitely see some strange activity here with this news report, and hopefully the games go off without a hitch. But who knows with some of these headlines we're seeing across the region. Now, in West Virginia, state of emergency as a water ban is issued over a chemical leak. West Virginian Governor Earl Ray Tomblin announced a state of an emergency in 8 counties on Thursday following a chemical spill into the Elk River, promoting a water ban that is reported to impact 100,000 customers. Local residents are urged not to drink, bathe, or cook with the water from their taps. Water use has only been permitted for flushing or fire emergencies. West Virginian American Water customers in Boone, Lincoln, Kanawha, Jackson, Clay, Logan, Rowan, and Putnam counties are included in the state of emergency, according to WSAZ News. According to reports, the leak of 4-methochlorohexylene and methanol, a chemical used in the froth flotation process during coal washing, and came from a tank at the Freedom Institute in Charleston. It says the Freedom Institute has denied any comments. The Kewanna Charleston Health Department told the news agency that daycares, universities, restaurants, and schools will need to be shut down. West Virginian American Water stated that the leak material is hazardous but is deadly. The FDA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, has been tasked with bringing clean water into the area. The smell of contaminated water is reported to be similar to licorice, and officials said would likely taste like gas. So anybody in West Virginia, check out and see if you are affected. I'm sure you heard, if you are in West Virginia, about this, but obviously this is a severe problem affecting over 100,000 people and is preventing people from drinking water and using the water to cook. And I hope they get the news out to everybody so nobody is affected by this, or as little people as possible.
Interesting. Folks, have you been following the nomination for the Civil Rights Division, the leader of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice? If you haven't, you should, because the DOJ, are illustrious. The Obama regime and the Department of Justice is going to be putting up, nominating a woman who worked as an advocate for the cop killer, Mumia Abu-Jamal. Remember that? The Mumia Abu-Jamal who killed the police officer Faulkner back in 1982. Well, I apologize. I don't know. Debo, and I'll spell the last name Adegbile. I don't even know how you'd pronounce that. But nonetheless, this DOJ nomination is, in the words of the officer who was killed by this killer, Abu Jamal, it says it's like spitting on all of our officers. Now, I'm going to tell you, I am not. We cannot allow this to take place. This is siding with the Black Panthers. This is siding with a murderer who killed with premeditation, malice, a radical Black Panther supporter. It's just crazy. So watch what the DOJ is doing right now. Keep your eyes open on that. That's going to be making some news here, I would say, in the next couple of days. And
okay.
Yeah, please do that. And the same thing, from the same category, the Department of Justice radical race-based school discipline policies are now in force. Have you heard about this?
No, I did hear something about the Department of Justice that they were talking about African Americans don't pick on, or it was so out of context, or so it seemed so off the wall.
I think this was on the Drudge Report yesterday, and it caught my attention, and it just I put it aside to look at it further. Well, here's the deal: the Department of Justice is saying this. The school discipline, the policies of school discipline, they're racially discriminatory because black students comprise a greater percentage of students disciplined than their percentage in the general population. Call it exceeding the bad behavior quota. Now here's the deal. This policy has been in place for the last 4 years. It's not news. It was covered in many books. In fact, one by J. Christian Adams called Injustice. That was published back in 2011. Well, what is specifically newsworthy is how these radical, racist education policies are going to be around for a long time. And the conservatives, the people with the sense, are not attacking this, are not doing anything about this. Here's the DOJ's reasoning. It goes like this. If a minority in school faces discipline at rates greater than their overall percentage in their population, then the school is engaging in racial discrimination. Okay? Now, that opens up an entirely different avenue. As Civil Rights Chief Tom Perez says, black boys account for 9% of the nation's student population, but comprise 24% of the students suspended out of school and 30% of students expelled. So what they're saying is there is a
minority of the school population is being singled out.
Yes, yes, and
that's what it sounded like from what I read.
Okay, exactly. So what they've done is Holder has he's been stacking the deck against white Americans. Now I don't want to sound like a racist myself. I really don't. But we have to talk like this to expose this. I personally, to me, it doesn't matter if you're white, black. The color really has no. It makes no difference when you're talking about discipline.
Well, the way you just said that, it did sound kind of funny. We have to talk like this, and I know as you're saying.
Well, yeah, I guess that. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
you almost sounded like we have to.
We have to. No, we have to. If we're going to talk about race, and we have to. To me, it doesn't matter. If you're a student, you're a student. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. But to me, the biggest racist of them all is Eric Holder when he comes out and says, "Well, we're going to force you to talk black versus white. We're going to force you into this particular system."
And that goes back to the what you were talking about, the marketing.
That's right.
Of the marketing of division. And these people are champions of that. They know how to get in people's heads. They know how to, and this is something I wanted to address too. When people hear or see something that offends them or disturbs them emotionally, a lot of times we see the reaction of that. And I think for the majority of people, from what I've seen, we need to be slow to reaction, depending on the situation. Situations, obviously, that warrant immediate action. I'm talking about something that we might hear that isn't right, or something we see that isn't accurate, or is play. We have to discern our emotions being intentionally.
Right, but I guess where I'm coming from in this, and I think that this is what I'm trying to get across to the listeners, is what we're seeing take place. And you mentioned it earlier, the marketing. You see, we're being told that the whole system is unfair to minorities, and we're being told that we must make concessions for minorities. The zero tolerance guideline, the policies that came into being in the early 90s, for example, they must be lessened for minorities. Now, this is what we're seeing right now. I mean, so I guess what I'm really getting at is the larger agenda here. This is a war, just like there's a war against Christians. There is a war against Americans. There are not African Americans, just Americans. I guess there's really no way of saying this without sounding racist.
I know what you mean, and it is sad that we still have people in the, as we talked about, the federal government, injecting themselves into state and local policies and school decision making. We see Common Core becoming a curriculum,
and that's at the core of it too. Common Core, yes,
right, and what children have been subjected to from 10 years ago, what has changed in the school systems. It just keeps getting worse and worse. I actually read today it was some forum where it said, listen to what my child told me when he came home from what he learned in school today. And it goes on to say how they learned how China's one-child policy was good, and it needed to go against the population growth, and we can't have a huge population boom. I mean, they're teaching kids in school the way that they see the world or want the world to be, not the right way. And this is universal through schools or life anymore, no matter where you're going. The majority of people are not biblically based believers. They don't have that moral compass based on the word of the Lord. So it's just going to be
it is.
Right. And we're at the same time, we have a war on Christians and the Bible. We have a war on the morals that made this country what it was to begin with. We have, and our whole society and the culture of the world has changed. And we were told this was going to happen. We were told that people would listen to the teachings of men rather than the teachings of the Lord. We're told that people would be changed, and the society would end up hating people who believed in Jesus.
Well, exactly. Since I was on a roll here, let me give you one more thing here. No, it wasn't actually. Let me give you one more thing. By the way, I'm scheduled to be on with Sean David Morton on his program on Monday. More on that later. But at any rate, when I was talking about the the DOJ guidelines, it's interesting because now we've spent a lot of time in Rochester, New York. Listen to this. Rochester does not have a problem with black mob violence or black on white crime. The city does, however, have a problem with white people who are not used to it. That's according to a Rochester city councilman. And this mindset is being adopted throughout the country. There's a video floating around. It's a disturbing video of a group of black people laughing and dancing as they talk about how they're going to wait for an old lady to leave a convenience store, and then they smash her face with a snowball and a fist. I don't know. Have you seen that? It's pretty disturbing.
I heard about this, and the local authorities are not taking any action. Is that
yeah. It's what the police in Rochester. They've got a copy of a video. They know who the culprits are. They know who these people who assaulted this poor elderly woman are. They're going to talk to them eventually, but police told the Rochester newspaper, well, it looks more like harassment, not assault, it's harassment, which should make Rochester City Councilman Adam McFadden a very happy guy. McFadden, if you're listening or if you've got a friend listening to this, because we do know we've got listeners in Rochester, New York, and we know Rochester pretty well. You see, McFadden schooled white people about their finicky sensibilities toward crime back 2-3 years ago. What is it now? In 2011. The occasion was an episode of large-scale black mob violence at a city-sponsored Memorial Day party featuring barbecued ribs. You remember this, Joe? We were in Rochester at this time, actually on this particular day, coming back from New York City, when we cut through the Adirondacks and came down through 90. Anyway, more than 200 black people showed up. They ate the food, they rioted, and then left. There were 13 arrests made, including one for assaulting a police officer. Now, the local paper explained that several public holiday gatherings had been canceled the year before because of violence, and the city has an ongoing issue with crowds at the Liberty Pole downtown. Folks, it's a site of if you're familiar with Rochester, that's a site of, mob violence. There's commonly gunshots taking place down there, and of course the paper does not talk about the racial aspect of this. But McFadden said that the 2011 black mob violence, here's what he said about it, the Memorial Day issue. He said, I think what you saw at the Memorial Day barbecue is what we've been seeing in many of our neighborhoods for 2 decades. It's just that you had a lot of people who were not used to that culture and got to witness it personally. So we've got an elected official in Rochester, New York, by the name of who? Adam McFadden, right? Who says, look, just get used to it. Get used to it. And this is the prevailing, under Eric Holder, this is what is prevailing, and this is what representative of the larger agenda of this regime. They are race baiting, and they're the biggest racists. I know I'm going to get some emails from this. I do. And I'm not trying to exacerbate the racial tensions, because I don't think, I really don't think the American Caucasian population really has. I just don't think that they're racially, they're inclined to speak in necessarily about race. It's just the violence. Anyway, folks, just be aware of this, that the DOJ right now is really turning the heat up. And if you talk about this stuff, expect to get spanked.
We're going to go to the phones now and take some callers. We're going to go to area code 719 first. You're live and on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Area code 719.
I hear the delay.
You're live and on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
All right. So,
hello.
Hey.
There you go.
Hi. How are you guys?
Well, let us check.
My dad's doing better, jumping from computer to computer around the studio like a monkey over here, on his knees here trying to read his email on one computer and talk in the other. It's kind of interesting to watch, but we're good. How are you doing?
Do you have your Nerf bat? No. I'm going to get one of those Nerf bats so I can hit myself with it occasionally, especially last night. the guest you had on. I recognized what he was saying because I came from the New Age. I had a Christian background, but then I went into the New Age. So as soon as he started talking, I was rolling my eyes going, oh, my gosh, this guy is so New Age. And I got angry at first. And then I started thinking about it. I thought, we really need to pray for him because he's really lost. I mean, he really believes that's what he was saying. And I know what he was talking about, and those people to believe that way are really stupid. So everybody listening got upset.
You know what? Here's what I think. I think that a lot of people. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to see how other people think, but it's also interesting to us, our reactions as Christians. Are we that threatened? Is our faith? I was asking myself the question today. Are we threatened by people like that? Is our faith tenuous, so tenuous? Is our faith so fragile that when someone, we can extend this to any scenario. If someone would attack our faith, how are we going to react? Or is it? And I'm not saying he attacked it at all. I'm not saying that. But if someone does attack your faith or questions your faith, are you soundly rooted in faith, in your faith? You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't sway you because you know what the truth is. And I didn't say that right, but you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. It's true. I think the thing that angered me is, at first, it was when he was trying to say that the Jews were, I can't remember the words he used, but they were lied to or whatever, or fooled, or I can't remember the exact terminology. That kind of angered me because what he was saying was that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was a liar, essentially. So that kind of made me a little upset. Can man change words when you're translating from one language to another? Can things get lost? Well, a little bit, yes. But if you still study diligently and look up other languages, and then you can figure it out. Because, like, certain words don't go together. What is his name? Oh, darn. Him and Rob Skiba do a thing called Quest for Truth, where they go back and forth with the scripture. And Douglas Hemp has a degree in Hebrew.
Wait a minute.
So he'll say,
Rob Skiba does. Wait a minute. I just want to be clear on this. Who does what with Rob Skiba?
Rob Skiba and Douglas Hemp have a YouTube thing called Quest for Truth, where they argue. It's like it's called putting it to the fire. They'll go through the scripture. We're doing Revelation. So they'll read a scripture and then they'll discuss it. And what does that really mean? What is he talking about? The synagogue of Satan. They call themselves Jews but are not, And then they go back and forth, and then they go to the Old Testament, and then Doug will say, well, in Hebrew it means this, and it could mean that. And then they say, well, sometimes they just have to they have to agree to disagree because they have different opinions on certain things. But the point is that the Hebrews were not lied to. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the burning bush that appeared to Moses, that was all true. And that guy obviously was reading, I don't know who. He had mentioned some person that Jesus said that in the scriptures it says, that my question would have been, well, did he test the spirit that came to him? J.Z. Knight, the New Ager, said something appeared in her kitchen, her claim to fame, and it was beautiful, and it was there to tell her, but she didn't test it, so she doesn't really know what it was. He can appear as an angel of light, so can his little demons. They can appear, or his little sublings or whatever, can appear as an angel of light. And the way you know that is that they don't testify to the truth of Jesus Christ. And so when you're talking to New Age people, it's really difficult coming out of that. I can spot it right away, but you just have to pray for them because they're so lost being in that position, coming out of that. You're so lost in all the minutia of all the different New Age things and all the books. Oh, God, the guy that wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, my sister's all into him. Everything he does is perfect. But she doesn't see the lie in it. And so what I decided to do is pray for him because they are so lost and they really want to believe that. They want to believe that they can create this utopia, this New Age thing is going to happen and it's going to transform them. And we know by the scriptures, especially since I've been doing that thing with Revelations, that that's not what's going to happen, that there's going to be a lot of chaos at the beginning of time. We also know that the son of perdition is going to appear. We know that they're setting up the beast tax. That's what Tom Corn calls it. In his book, I got beast tax, and the other ones. I got a bunch of his stuff. But I study him, Dr. Messler, and others. And so we know that's coming. And so it doesn't surprise me that people fall into that lie because it seems so. It's kind of like you can say to yourself, oh, okay, like the reincarnation thing. Oh, okay, I'll come back and do it better. Shirley MacLaine, wrote books about it, all Hollywood people. So these people are so lost and they can't see the truth. And for me, it was Jesus, I think. I mean, when I look back, I can just see so many times where Jesus, supernatural things that happened that I should have been harmed, but something was there to help me. He was leading me in the direction he wanted me to go. He was calling me back. I know it with a fact. I mean, I can tell you stories that you probably wouldn't believe, but it does. If he calls you when he's ready, I don't really know what he wants me to do yet, but he'll let me know. Anyway, for the people out there that were listening last night and you didn't know where this was going to go and you didn't know what he believed, and you just have to pray for those people. You really, really have to pray for them because they're so lost and so blinded, and it's just sad. And so I just wanted to say that I think you guys did a great job, and I just wanted people out there to know that those types of people, our faith is solid in the Lord Jesus Christ. We know he is the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father except through him. So we know that. And we know that these people are going to be fooled because we were told they were going to be fooled. But Satan's going to come with all signs and lying wonders, correct? All signs and lying wonders. That means all.
Yeah, you're right.
So this guy is so fooled by the sign, lying wonder. And I think when you first hear that, because, you know, you're expecting Christians, because we've been listening to the show a long time, and we all know we're all Christians, and we all believe in Jesus, and we all believe in the Bible, the inherent word of God. And God is not a man that he should lie. So therefore, when you hear that, you have to realize how lost. Think of a person that, other people that are probably listening to me, they're just so lost that when you hear that and you get angry at first, because I did when I was listening to him, and then I said, wait a minute, he's really super lost. It took me a little while to get to it, and then I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that when you hear the people doing that, rebuke it by the blood of Jesus, obviously, first, but then pray for them. Pray like you've never prayed so that the Lord can show him the truth. Because, you know, it's sad. And there's so many, it's like you want to talk about minutia of the New Age movement. It's all over with different people in different sects. You got the shooting claims. You got the, whatever his authors he was talking about. You've got the guy that wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull writing books. You've got, I can go on. There is so many people. Oprah Winfrey and her group with Eckhart Tolle, I think is his name. They're doing these little internet things, and it's just there's just this large minutia of that stuff going on where they think they're going to ascend or something into some, I don't know what. But the bottom line is that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. And he's told us that we have to pray for those people. And that's what, as Christians, everybody listening, just when you hear something like plead the blood of Jesus and start praying for them. And who knows, maybe a miracle will happen and he'll change. He'll start to see the truth.
And that's one thing,
So
you're right on the money with it, is the prayer and the power of prayer. And today, so many people who are in churches or who are believers in Christ, we talked about this with Brother Marcus and with others, you know, the spiritual warfare aspect of things and how Christians have been basically neutered in this subject. It's been taken out unless somebody is really dedicated and will read through the Bible and will pray about what they're reading. You're not going to learn about how this spiritual warfare has been tearing us apart. And prayer,
the Bible is no easy read, Joe.
No, it's not. It's not. But it's not impossible. And it's not.
No, it's not. The New English translation is actually fairly easy to read, but I always have my King James to fall back on. So, because I'm not a very good, I was educated in that wonderful California education system. I always say that with such funny because it's a long story. But the point is that I get the New English, I read that, and then I go and check I back check it with my King James. And then I also go in and I look at Hebrew. I mean, it's a study. The points that we were raised with, the 10 Commandments, those commandments don't change. God's the same as he was then. He's never changed. He won't lie to us. Jesus said what is written will be fulfilled. I mean, just things like that. You don't have to be perfect. Like, I can't quote you. I can't tell you where it is because I'm not like that. I'm not a verse quoter person. But I do try to feel it, you know. That's how I remember. And the important things Paul talked about, and none of us are, you know, none of us are good enough, none of us. But because of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross and the shedding of blood and what he went through and the stripes he bears for our sins, we are washed clean because of him. But am I perfect? Absolutely not. I am not perfect in any stretch of the imagination. And I was talking to my sister today recently, and she said something about, well, God is all, I mean, she was in a church. Well, God doesn't do that. I said, Rebecca, you really need to go back and read John, read what Jesus said. You know, he is the way, the truth, and the light. And I said that, and I did tell her, you got to go back and read Revelation, because she didn't understand the mark of the beast or any of that or what it meant. And, so she goes, oh, he said that in the Bible? I said, you have to start reading the Bible. Start with the Gospel of John. I always liked this, because when I became a Christian 3 years ago, and I was going to church, and I was starting to see, like, there was this can thing that was going on, but I wasn't feeling any Holy Spirit thing going on. And it was kind of weird, but they just read Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm not really, you know, okay. So Matthew's a really a tough one. So I always, when I find new Christians, I said, okay, I give this girl a Bible. I said, start with the book of John first, because John is really good to get you to know Jesus, what he did. I think that the book of John is just an excellent new reading Christian thing to get you to understand God. And the God, he is, you know, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. It kind of gets you into that and what he did. The other Gospels are just as great, but I always try to recommend that one, because sometimes people get, I mean, and even I do, like, question sometimes, what am I saying?
Yeah, you know, people really,
trips, you know.
I mean, like I said earlier, people need to read the Word for themselves, and they need to pray and ask for revelation of that Word, or we, you know, it's hard to grow in understanding, and people don't have that motivation there. And we really appreciate your call. We're going to have to move on to other callers, but it was great to hear from you.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you guys are doing well. Bye.
God bless you.
You take care.
Take care.
God bless you guys.
Hate to cut callers off, mid-conversation, but we do only have a limited time, and I see we have a lot of people on hold here, so I want to get to as many as possible, as we took calls last night.
Let's go with the lightning round version of the calls. This will be great.
Okay, 269, we're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi, Doug and Joe. It's nice to speak with you. Hello?
Well, it's great to be spoken at.
I had a couple of things I was going to talk about, but I guess I was just struck by what the last caller brought up. And actually, I come from a similar background. I was raised in a strong Christian background. It was more legalistic, but Christian nonetheless. And then I started to move into the sort of New Age type of thinking. I had never studied the New Age, but I realized, you know, once I actually did become a true believer, that's the type of thinking that I was really in. And the verse that she was repeated several times, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and that nobody can come to the Father but by him, that's what really actually that's kind of the verse that I guess the enemy was using against me, because I would use that verse and say, you know, like I had experienced God many times, and so I kind of disregarded Jesus for a long time, but that verse is always what the enemy gave me, as far as like I had experienced Father God. But really, Jesus is what I was missing the whole time, and I came to realize through a series of events, I started to get into, it all started really with like a prophetic dream that I had, and that it was confirmed that it was prophetic, and then I was like completely like gung ho, and I was really, a very immature Christian at this time, and so I wasn't very discerning.
What kind of a dream? But what kind of a dream did you have that was prophetic, and how did you confirm that it was prophetic?
Well, I had a dream, and I just somehow knew it was prophetic. And when I woke up, I just felt I just knew somehow. I just felt like a urgency.
So it was in your spirit then. Okay, yeah, and I get that. I get that. Okay.
I felt an urgency that it had to be written down immediately before I started faith. And it definitely, I don't even know how, but I've always had pretty good writing skills, not to toot my own whistle, but the way that it was written, it was just out of myself,
Did it come to pass? Whatever prophetic utterance was made, did it come to pass?
Yes, it did. It did come to pass, and
okay.
Not in entirety, but part of the dream was confirmed that yes, this is prophetic. So I knew that it was prophetic the whole time, or at least I believed that, and I thought that, and then it was confirmed to be prophetic, and so at that point I was just completely gung ho and oh my gosh, my faith just jumped, I don't know how to describe it. I was just walking up some steps, and then all of a sudden I was on an elevator chute or something. It just jumped completely up, and I was just so on fire, and I'm just oh my gosh, I have to I wanted to seek out ways to honor God and learn more about Him, but I was so immature at that time as a Christian, and so I completely
we grow on this. We've got to, and you make a good point. The maturity, we've got to really mature. We can't stay stagnant in our faith, and we can't stay stagnant in our knowledge either. That's really important to me. I'm always thirsting for knowledge, but we use as a basis, of course, the scripture, as you would, or the references that you point out. But yeah, it's so it sounds like you've matured and you've grown in the Word, and that's great. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It's been a dramatic improvement within just a few months, but at first I was so immature. I was just seeking out material, and I didn't. At that point, I don't know why, but I didn't go directly to the Bible. I kind of just I don't know. I was an open book or something. I was just a sponge or something, and for whatever reason I decided, and I really want to bring out this book and this name because it's crucial. I feel it's something that people need to be aware of. It's called The Return to Love, and it's by Marianne Williamson, and it's really a rendition of the Course of Miracles.
All right.
And it's very New Age. It's very subtle that it's New Age. A lot of new Christians might, be drawn to it, I guess, just because they're not firm in the Word, the Holy Bible. But it's definitely you should be aware of it because it's a New York bestseller. Her name's Marianne Williamson, and she's done a rendition of the Course in Miracles. It's actually done in I want to say the early 80s.
Okay, all right.
By some sort of psychologist, but
you make a good point here because we're going to be deceived, and I believe this, and I think this perhaps might be what you might be getting at. We're going to be deceived very subtly, and the deception is going to hit us in ways you might not see coming. And I think that's people all the time ask me, well, what do you think is the next trigger event to take place? I think we should always expect the unexpected, and it's something that's going to come completely out of left field we're not going to see coming. That's the same way with our faith. That's the very same thing because
that's why we need to be rooted and grounded in our faith and sure of what we believe. And caller, we appreciate your call, and thank you for sharing. We're going to have to move on to another caller as we're trying to get through a bunch of calls. But God bless you, and keep in touch.
And stay growing. Stay growing.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had time to share the whole story, but I actually called, before, and I told you I was going to send you my testimony. And
I remember that. I'm still looking for it, by the way.
I'm working on it. I'm trying. I guess I might be a little bit too picky, but I'm trying to edit it and make it I'm just afraid that it's not clearly depicting on exactly what my thinking was before and after, but I just feel like that's so crucial because I feel like so many people can relate, and so I'm just trying to make it as best as I possibly can, but it's coming. I'm still working on it, so.
Oh, God bless you, and you take care, and we'll be looking for it.
Yeah.
Thanks for your call, and thanks for listening. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I love you.
All right.
God bless you. Bye.
Love you
God bless
too,
you.
man. Yeah, we love all of our listeners. We really do, and the outpouring of love and support that we've received email-wise, by the way, I just all corners of the earth. It's just tremendous. It really is.
And there was one. You have my computer here. If you pull up the email there, the email from Steve talks about how
I'm not even sure I know how to do your email here.
Look, it should be open already. It talked about how that they were. It was a positive experience for them because they did not understand certain New Age beliefs and belief systems, and how without that exposure, as they said, they would not have picked up on certain subtleties of this.
And this comes from Steve P. Steve P., you know who you are. Thanks for the email. He writes, he says, I don't usually write. I listen often, and you guys do have great guests and insight. And he just be commenting on last night's show. He said, if you would have cut the guest off sooner, I wouldn't have had the insight I have now. I certainly don't agree with his assessment. But you guys obviously had been exposed to New Age thinking enough to recognize when it surfaces. Now I know where this is coming from, which is half the battle. Of course, I'm paraphrasing what he said here. Many thanks for the exposures. We need to be aware of the forces in which direction they're pulling. Now, let me just say this and I really did not want to talk about this tonight for a lot of reasons, but it's one thing when you. If we're going to ask it, I don't mind if we have an expert on something on a topic. We'll say an expert on radiation on Fukushima, and that person is a Buddhist, okay, or as an example. And we say, look, we understand that you're an expert on Fukushima and radiation or whatever the topic might be. Come on and talk. We have specific questions about the specific item. We don't want to hear anything else. Nothing else is relevant. Not a problem. But if a person says, okay, I'll do that, and then all of a sudden that person starts talking about Buddhist temples, for example, or, you get my drift. That's a little bit of a problem. It's a big problem, actually, for a lot of reasons. There's a level of disingenuousness there, and it occurs too when our lights are flashing and our system is crashing because of some other things. It's difficult to handle. It's not going off a script. It's just it's kind of like being in a courtroom. Very narrow listening or very narrow area of questioning.
I just want to clarify something. We didn't cut anybody off last night. We actually got booted off as host on Blog Talk Radio, and it was not anything we did, and we just never. He never ended up calling back in, and we never brought him back on.
Right. So that's that. But let's move on because we do have many callers, and God bless you all for hanging with us. Yeah. If we can, let's try to get to the point, and we'll move right along through these calls.
Yeah, we're going to go to another call in just a second, but let me do this while we have the time. Tomorrow we're not going to have calls, as we'll have V and a few other people on. And Sunday we're doing a special show with Steve and Pastor Langford, and
that's going to be a fantastic show on Sunday. Oh,
we're going to have Michael Arevna on next week, and we haven't figured out if it will be Monday or what day it will be, but might not have a chance for the next 3 shows or so to get callers, so we're going to take as many as we can tonight, and we're going to go to 334 next. Here live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We got about 6 minutes before we need to go to a break. What is on your mind tonight?
Is that me?
That is you.
That's you.
Well, hi. It's the first time I've been able to call in. Quick comment on last night's show. Michael actually made this point later, that your guest had some very pertinent insights at the beginning when he's talking about the origination of these chemtrails and the airspace permissions that had to be granted. And I found it particularly enlightening, the mindset that he was explaining. But on the New Age thing, I don't have a dissimilar experience from your previous callers. I would say that I wandered into New Age more in the vein of Russ Dizdar 20 or so years ago, and emerged from that on the other side. But I will say this. My experience with the New Age is that these people basically do not believe that evil exists, and when they discover that it does, it really scares them. It really unnerves them. So I see the impetus and how easy it is to get drawn into that way of thinking, because it alleviates a lot of anxiety about the true nature of good and evil. And,
I like that.
Yeah, well,
I like what you said.
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, truly, at the heart of what's driving all of this is just a great, great fear. And, it wasn't, I was raised in an extraordinarily fundamentalist Christian home, and your previous caller was talking about, you experience God, Father, Abba, but even in some Christian experience, a lot of who Jesus is and what he did and what he still does is not really taught. It's like you're given the rules, but you're not given the referee, if you know what I mean. You're not shown the way, the truth, and the light of Jesus in many Christian experiences. And so
right.
it was difficult. Yeah, it was difficult for me. But because of that strong Christian upbringing, when I finally heard a lie that I knew was a lie, it was an easy walk out of it. But the one thing after 20 years of looking at this and seeing this and hearing this, and it's so easy to pick up now, the biggest
right.
thing is that these people don't believe evil exists. They can't, because if they did, then they would have to question what they're dealing with. And a lot of them are just afraid. So
fear is a great motivator.
Fear is a great motivator. Fear is a great motivator. Yep. It'll run you the other way real quick.
Yep.
The second thing, real quick, I found an excellent resource for, they tell a half-truth here. Yes, there are some mistranslations in the Bible. And it's very difficult if you're not a Bible scholar to find all this, because it's been done very subtly. If your listeners care to look this man's work up, his name is Walter Veith, and he's a professor, now a pastor. You spell his last name VEITH.com, or you can reach his seminars through amazingdiscoveries.org. Professor Veith is probably the most enlightening, well-educated. He has sought this out. He went from atheist and evolutionist to Christian to follower of Jesus. So he has an amazing series called, the name escapes me now, but it's about 30 different seminars, and in several of these, Total Onslaught is the series. He has several different series, but Total Onslaught is the series. He has some incredible historical, documented facts of biblical history, and I think it would be very enlightening for anyone who's interested.
All right, you've put that out there, and certainly those people who want to look further can. And that's tell me again the name of the website
Okay, it's walterweiss.com, or you can reach him through amazingdiscoveries.org.
All right, very good. We really appreciate that, because we have people searching for additional information like this all of the time. And folks, use your discernment when you are looking at websites, even ours. Use your discernment all the time. Caller, thank you so much. We're up against the top of the hour. We're going to cut you loose, but thanks for calling and thanks for being a listener. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. I want to alert people to this really quick. The Air Force has got another situation here. No. 2 missile combat crew members in the 341st Missile Wing at an Air Force base in Montana have been implicated in a narcotics investigation. Now, you're talking about 2 on a nuke missile crew being implicated in a drug probe. I just want to kind of alert you to this. I've got to say, as we look at these stories unfold, we're looking at something, I believe, taking place that we've got to really look at from all sides. In August, officials relieved the missile wing's security officer after a failed safety inspection, and just 2 months ago, the unit, the 341st Missile Wing at the Air Force Base in Montana, they received an overall excellent rating. They underwent a week-long inspection conducted by the Air Force Global Strike Command. But here's the deal. 2 officers who operate the Minuteman III missiles have lost access to classified information. Why? Because they're being implicated in this alleged drug probe. What's really going on behind this? Are we talking, is there something more? Obviously there's something more going on here, but I don't think we've ever seen such a purge of our military. We need to keep on top of this, and I just want to say that it's very important.
One thing, if you get a chance to look into, is if they're shuffling around people through different agencies in the government. I read something earlier, and I wanted to show you and didn't get a chance to do that, and we'll have to do it later as we're going to go to a break now. But I heard personnel were going to different agencies inside the government, and it could have been completely nonsense what I was reading. So something to keep in mind. On to our third and final hour of this Thursday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I want to start out by saying, listen, on Saturday, Brother Marcus and his son Curtis have started a new show here on Blog Talk Radio, Pine Ridge Warriors. That is at 7 p.m. Mountain Time or 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Pine Ridge Warriors on Blog Talk Radio. Follow them and download their podcast as they are starting out their new show, and they do need listeners, and
sure,
it's a fantastic show. And thank you, Doc, for throwing that link there in the chat room. 9 p.m. Eastern, the Pine Ridge Warriors.
Absolutely.
Saturdays.
Yeah, and as soon as I can get to this, and I know I've been saying this for the last 3 nights, I'm gonna 4 nights. I'm gonna get the website taken care of. A lot of new information to put up there, including an article I've been working on. It just seems like every time it's kind of like whack-a-mole in this office. If you've ever played that game, you're doing something, and all of a sudden you've got to take that mallet and whack. The mole will pop its head up through the holes, but so we're playing whack-a-mole. But folks, let me just direct you to our sponsors, Audible.com. I really love Audible.com. We are satisfied customers. We don't have time to read books, all books. One of the books they have right now is 1 second after. First of all, if you've read the book, it's fabulous. If you hear it, it's unbelievable. It's great. Folks, Audible.com is the leading provider of a premium digital spoken audio and information entertainment on the Internet. It's a fantastic customer service that allows you and me to choose the audio versions of your favorite books. They've got a library of over 150,000 titles. It's a great deal. As a matter of fact, listeners to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report are being offered an introductory special. For example, if you just go to www.audibletrial.com/CFP Radio, that's Canada Free Press Radio, or count for puppies, I don't know, CFP Radio. You can get a free audiobook and a 30-day trial today. Just sign up. Go to www.audibletrial.com/CFP Radio and take advantage of their great specials for the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Once again, I'm very satisfied user, customer, and I don't know what I have done without that. Just a fantastic program. A lot of more news, calls, just a whole ton of stuff.
Yeah,
but keep your eye on that Air Force thing going on, okay? That's all I want to say about that.
I'm going to send you this here in Skype. You check this out. And there's a chart. I'm going to post this in the chat room as well. It's the petroleum and other liquids chart from the U.S. Energy Information Administration for the U.S. total gasoline retail by sales by refiners. And it's looking at consumption. Total U.S. total gasoline retail sales by refiners. Thousands of gallons per day is what they go by. And why
is this important? Because I got an email on this, and I think you're headed in the same direction I am. Go ahead.
The consumption levels are so low compared to it starts at the year I was born, 1983, okay? We'll just start there. And this is by the thousands. So in 83, in January, we'll say, it had 46,218, and that's, I think, 46 billion maybe, it's by 1,000, gallons per day. And that was the lowest number of the year, and it kept going, hovering around 51, 52 billion, I guess, gallons per day. And that trend continues, but in 2013, the numbers in January are 27,000. And we keep hearing about, peak gas and peak oil, and gas is so expensive. We're looking at consumption levels that are less than half of what they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I don't know what exactly this means. I just found this chart and I had to look through it and go over this stuff, but I think that's interesting. And I wonder what is causing such a downturn in fuel consumption here in the U.S. But interesting, something to look at.
Well, I just want to say this when we talk about fuel prices. Folks, if you are sleeping now, if you are unawakened now, please sleep well, because when you do wake up, it just might be a long time before you will sleep well again. Because you see, the prematurely darkening sky is not just the announcement of evening in America. No. Those are blustering storm clouds. And the thundering cracks will be along shortly. Trust me on this. They'll be hard to miss. Because why? You think $3.49, $3.59, $3.69, whatever you're paying for a gallon of gas right now is high. Just wait until the Russians decide and the Iranians and Syrians decide that they're not going to take this proxy war that's being waged by the U.S. And yes, I've got to put Israel into this same camp as well, and NATO. You see, they're not fooled about who was behind Benghazi, the gun-running operations out of Benghazi and eastern Libya. They're not fooled by the opening front in the Al Anbar province now to strike against Syria. That is their new attack, their new front that has just opened, the latest front. And just as this, just as the first and now failed fronts in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Jordan, what are we looking at here? This is all about plausible deniability by the United States and by Israel and others. By the way, it's PD, as it's known in the tradecraft. It's the magic act where the sleight of hand and deception rule the day in the hall of mirrors that is the Middle East politics. Folks, I would urge you, if you haven't done this in a while, to look up and save Michael Reagan's article called Kernel of Truth. It's still relevant and important today. It was written over a year ago, but it explains what's taking place in Syria right now. It's, in fact, it was essentially predicted. Syria is not going to explode or implode. It's going to explode. It's not going to succumb to some ragtag army of militants. So when this becomes unraveled, and it will, look for it to explode eastward into Saudi Arabia and all the way to the Arab Sea and north into Iran and all the way to the Strait of Hormuz. And when it does, not if it does, but when it does, that attack will not just damage shipping and the free flow of oil into Western markets. It's going to crush the U.S. dollar, and with it, take your hopes and your dreams and the hopes and dreams and the security of our children with it as well. In addition to life as we know it. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it's going to be the end of the world as we know it in the West. And if you're listening to this in any Western country, you're free. You know that your life will be forever changed when this does happen. Folks, Syria is still on the table. It's the final, one of the final stumbling blocks of into the New World Order. Please pay attention. This is the most important foreign policy issue we're facing today. It's making a deal with the devil and understanding that the devil is in the details, and we must be paying very close attention to what's taking place right in front of our faces.
Yeah, and we're going to go back to the calls in just 1 second. One more story I just need to hit on, as this was rare. I don't know how many listeners we have in Florida or southern Florida, but a 5.1 magnitude earthquake struck in the Straits of Florida off Cuba on Thursday, startling office workers and medium-rise buildings set in swaying Havana. There was no word of any damages or injuries that occurred about 4 p.m., 106 miles east of Havana, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The closest city to the epicenter was Corralillo, 17 miles to the southwest. And this is an odd place for an earthquake, a 5.1. And there's no tsunami dangers. There was no deaths, but a kind of pretty large earthquake there, 5.0 or 5.1. They went back and switched it, tweaked the numbers, but apparently in 1932 there was an earthquake killing 8 people, and this was in Cuba. I guess it's not an awkward region to have a quake. I guess just so close to Florida down there, it looks to be the impact here. But I mean, we're seeing these things popping up everywhere, and I saw Cease Quayle had something up on his site. There was a earthquake in Fukushima yesterday, I believe, that was downgraded from a hell point, either from a 6 to a 5 or a 5 to a 4, something along those lines. But we do have some Fukushima news here. As this from InfoWars: Fukushima madness, plant decontamination system shuts down amid failure. A malfunction within the Fukushima plant has led to the complete shutdown of the plant's decontamination system. And it says the Fukushima nightmares continue under the wing of plant operator Temco. The blatant incompetence, a highly deceptive corporation is once again apparently following a complete shutdown of the plant's decontamination systems, a very same system responsible for handling the mass amounts of fallout seen from Fukushima. Temco originally promised that it would be entirely decontaminated by the end of 2014. But definitely something to keep your eyes on. Always we need to keep our eyes on that Fukushima region as things continue to deteriorate there, and we continue to see an increase of...
Joe, I did get an email real quick. I did get an email from TJ who said please have a particular person on. We're looking into bringing someone on because apparently there are some Freedom of Information Act papers about Fukushima that paint an entirely different story about Reactor 4. We're looking into that. TJ, we're looking into that. So that's my message.
All right, let's go to the calls here. We're going to go to area code 240 first. You're live on the Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi there. Is that me?
Yeah. It sounded like you're cutting out a little bit. There we go.
Okay. Is that better?
Yep. Sounds good.
Just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I'll do the lightning fast. So there's no such thing when talking to you guys. I can see that. As far as the Redskin issue, I'm of course a Redskin fan. I haven't found one fan that has agreed that the name needed to be changed. And you're right. There's Redskin potatoes, and there's actually Redskin grapes, and and a couple of, I guess it was a few weeks ago when they did the tribute to the military or whatever, they brought out Navajo wind talkers on FedEx Field and put, the Redskin jackets on them and everything. So I don't think our owner has any plans whatsoever on changing that. I just, people spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the, memorabilia, whatever. So I listen to you guys every night. You're the only ones I listen to.
Thank you.
I have a problem with other people, and I can get as far as I can get with them, which is usually not very. People are just into their own in their own little world, and they don't want to be bothered by it, and they say, if it's going to be a world like that, then I would rather not live in it either. And I'm and my point is always, it's not about, we're here at this time for a reason. It is not about, you. I mean, it's about leaving something for your children and your grandchildren and your descendants, a country free as we grew up in. Now, I wasn't awake until probably about 3 or 4 years ago. It's probably been about 4 years. And I saw, I think it was you, Doug. I saw you on, I must have saw you on Alex+Jones one day, and I fell in love. I loved how you talked, and it wasn't. I like Alex.
It was my good looks. He's a charming personality. I'm sorry. It was my good looks. Yeah. Okay. But sometimes he talks a little fast, and it's difficult for me to keep up. Although even though I talk fast, but anyway, I listen to you guys every single night. Also, as far as the you were talking earlier about the H1N1, I was inoculated before I was awake against this, and I have been extremely sick ever since. With when
all
was this?
These,
when were you inoculated?
I want to say, was it 2008? Wait a minute, no,
okay.
it was.
So it was a couple of years ago.
2009, somewhere in there, where
right.
everybody was standing in line getting them.
Right.
And I had a client of mine who was a doctor and went ahead and inoculated me, and I think it was a 2-step deal. And then all of a sudden I started, getting real sick, and with autoimmune disorders, they can't even identify to this day. Oh. I've had to stop working. It has been, so I would just urge anybody out there to, really investigate what you're getting into if you plan on taking any of that, any of those vaccines. I've always been healthy. Growing up, wow. and as an adult, I've always been healthy. My children are healthy. I got 2 grandbabies; they're healthy. And I'm extremely worried about them, of course, with all the inoculations they get, which is, it's got to be 10 times what my children had. But so as far as that goes. I just urge anyone just to, really, really do your research. And, and as far as I understand, I think isn't this optional? I mean, they don't make it to where, they want you to believe that it's not optional, that you can opt
for
out.
Adults. Yeah, for adults it's completely optional. Now, for entering the school systems, it's supposedly not. You have to have certain vaccinations, and this is according to the federal government, and it's spit polished by the states, and then of course the school districts. But no, it's completely optional for H1N1 for adults. But you mentioned something very important here, and I think people really need to really focus in on this. The autoimmune diseases associated with the vaccines, folks, please look into this. I do know personally of one person, like yourself, who is suffering from an autoimmune disease linked to the H1N1. I believe it's the H1N1 virus. It's the current, whatever the current. Joe, help me out here. H1N1, right?
Numbers
flowing through my head here.
The H1N1 is what they're stating is
swine flu or whatever.
Really,
it's been through 22 states. It's finally taken its first victim in the U.S. apparently, or North America. I'm not sure. Okay.
All right, and this person is developed a form of lupus, and that's it's really kind of weird. So
yes, I mean I get, and it's different all the time. It's you know. Some things will hurt more on some days, and other days something else will hurt. And they've never really been able to put a finger on it. I now have lung issues. I have all kinds of arthritic issues.
Yep.
I have the irregular heartbeat now that I've never had before, and I mean, I just find it very. You know, it's just coincidence that it was just, you know, a few months after the H1N1 shot. So
that's exactly how it. Okay, a few months afterwards, that's exactly how it happened with the person I'm referring to. That's interesting.
Absolutely,
wow.
And I've always been healthy, up and around. I had 3 children that I raised. I mean, you know, and worked and took care of the house and husband, the whole deal. And now all of a sudden I'm. You know, I'm informed because I'm able to take the time now to listen and research and I read all of your articles and you know, sometimes I feel quite lonely and in my belief of you know that there is a takedown of America occurring right under our nose, and you know, I get called, you know, a kook and everything.
Oh, of course.
And I mean, this is.
I mean, you're not alone. You're with us, and you know what? I understand this because it's difficult to tell people things are not. It's difficult because the lie is so enormous, and because everything seems on the surface to be normal. It's a very hard, difficult approach to make with people. You're not.
But don't you find it difficult?
Yeah.
Don't you find it difficult to? I mean, it's difficult for me to focus on things of minor importance. I mean, it's difficult for me to focus on other things because I'm thinking, well, okay, so how does this apply later down the line when I'm, you know, when my life is going to change or whatever? I mean, it's just, it's hard to stay focused. Right now I'm redoing my kitchen, so that's helping.
It's very difficult to stay focused these days, and that's for a lot of reasons. But when you're talking about the enormity of what's taking place right in front of us, and seeing the world change and everything change right in front of us, and people are not seeing it or they're refusing to acknowledge it. It's a lonely. Right. It's very lonely out there. Now, it's everyone has their own ways to handle it. I just, I just get, I have to take a walk with my dog, or, you know, it's just or just get lost in it takes some time. You can't be thinking about this stuff 24/7. That'll drive you nuts. So you've got to take some time.
That's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. I do just small things here and there. Although I am working on a kitchen project that somebody else will eventually enjoy, but it is it keeps me busy and keeps my mind off it. And but anyway, I just wanted to add those couple of things. I think you know, if we start with going back to the Redskin thing. I mean, if we start with Redskin. I mean, there's just a ton out there. It's getting ridiculous. There's, you know, the warriors and all of that. It's just. I think it's a continuation of everything else that they're doing, and the ultimate politically correct, which who said that it was tyranny with manners. Is the way I heard it described. But anyway, so I talked about the lightning round and how nobody ever observes it, and neither did I. I appreciate talking to you guys, and I listen to you every night faithfully, and I pray for your safety.
Well, thank you, and God bless you. Thanks for listening and hanging there.
Great call.
Yes, and
and
that's
I'll
what
talk to you
calls are all
again
about.
sometime.
All right, please
Absolutely.
do.
Thank you so much. Okay.
All right.
God bless
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
And that's what I mean to me. People call in the talk shows to talk.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we let people do because it's what we do.
We're going to go to 205 and then a few callers who've been on hold for a while. We're going to take them in the order that they come. 205. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi, Doug and Joe. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm not going to keep you guys too long, but I wanted to bring up this thing that I've been hearing about the Hoover Dam. Have y'all heard any insights about that?
No.
I think Stan Dale mentioned something about it. It could have been in reference to water levels. I'm not sure, but I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. What are you referring to, caller?
Well, the thing is, I heard that's supposed to be probably one of their next best things, like the 9/11 attack. Because I read up on the Hoover Dam, and it seems to me where if they were to explode something about that Hoover Dam, it would take a whole lot of New York out as far as water is concerned. And there's pictures of Obama going to the Hoover Dam, and I was looking at a Transformer movie, and they like to present their stuff in movies and stuff like that. And it's this thing about the Hoover Dam on part 1, I think it is, and where they're showing the Hoover Dam, and then once you go up under it, they were like, well, we have this alien thing, and it's top secret, and this, and this, and I know the Hoover Dam has, like, different levels up under it. And they said, and from what I heard, it was on the back of the $50 bill as well.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. Right. Okay. I think you're confusing. I think you might be a little bit confused. Of course, the Hoover Dam is in Nevada. New York is not. However, the image on it's the $100 bill. I believe it is the new $100 bill. And Michael Revna had talked about this.
Yeah, they're talking about some kind of tsunami wave.
Right, and I'm not sure that they could identify the city. All good points. And Michael Revna has, and I go back to what he said about the new $100 bill. If you fold it a certain way, just like the old 20s with 9/11. So I don't know what to make of this, honestly, except to acknowledge that there's there are a lot of theories out there.
It is. You can't believe them all either, but you can, sure look at them and have your eyes open to it and see. But I mean, it was just something I wanted to throw out there because I know I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I've seen it on their movies, and I know how they like to advertise stuff, and they do that. So I didn't know. But the one more thing I was gonna say, and I'm gonna let that go. After we was talking about a while back, y'all were talking about this thing with Beyonce and how the celebrities and stuff do their thing where they're worshiping or whatever. But I wanted to bring to your acknowledgement that Beyonce had a baby that they say is Blue Ivy, whichever name. I don't know where she get that name from. But this is supposed to be some kind of satanic baby that she's supposed to have been had, and it wasn't a real pregnancy or whatever.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I do not know. I just remember that one clip where she went to be on a talk show and her belly folded all weird. As far as the demonic child, I have no idea.
Yeah, but speaking of children, caller and ladies and gentlemen, I would really like your insight and thoughts about the Kate Middleton pregnancy. Women especially, look at the photographs online of Kate after having the baby, so soon after having the baby, and just I'd be interested in your thoughts. But callers,
being in heels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow. Some will say good genes. Others will say, well, wait a minute, maybe there was a surrogacy involved. And you know,
well,
it's
I
very
had 3.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have had 3 kids, and I know for a fact that they wheel you out the hospital. They won't even let you walk out of the hospital without being in a wheelchair. And so I don't know how she's able to be able to get up in heels like that after one first child. When they told me to get out the bed, I was like, are you crazy? I think I need to lay here for 3 more years. I just had a baby. So it was, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's what I looked at. She had on wedges, and she still had this little belly, and your belly goes completely down. You don't have no fat anywhere, but you still got this little lump, and she's all out in the air, not covered up. And then he was saying something about, well, we have to get to know the baby or whatever. Don't you get to know your baby a whole lot sooner than the day it's born?
Well, yeah, there were a lot of odd things about that. I've got to tell you, and especially knowing how the Illuminati, and you brought it up earlier, caller, about how the Illuminati operate. They adhere to a specific code. They tell you what they're going to do before they do it, and then of course there's just a lot of weird stuff. But I'd keep more than Beyonce. I would certainly keep my eyes on that. The Kate Middleton pregnancy, I think that has more global ramifications perhaps than others. But great call. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And you guys keep doing what you're doing, and I'll let some more callers get in there.
All right. Thanks, dear. All right.
All right.
Take care.
All right. We're going to go to 940 next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 940? All right.
I think 940 said, hey, you know what? I'm out of here.
It dropped off right when we went to it. So if you can't call back, we'll try to get you back on. We're going to go to 914. Did we do this already, 914? Why is that? What, does there sound familiar? 919.
I don't think so.
919, then we'll go to 914.
All right.
919, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Doug. How are you guys?
Hey. Fantastic.
I'm so glad to speak with you.
Well, we're glad to speak with you.
Both of you.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure, and God knows you've been through the battlefield, and I want to tell you that the good Lord has just been so marvelous. He is watching over you, protecting you, leading and guiding you. He's giving you strength and comfort. You're going through the battlefield. My love, stay strong. Oh, Jesus, stay strong for him. He needs you so. And you need him. I called back a while ago and told you were under attack. And it has been electronically. It has been in your private lives. It has been like last night. And to this man, how dare you? How dare you? In the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. I rebuke the spirit that is around you. May God shine his holy divine light upon your heart, and may the Holy Spirit strike a fire in you that will not die. May you see truth as truth is. And I want to tell you something, a little story about John. I'm reading a book right now that was printed in 1889. That's a long time ago. And it's called, I wanted to share this with you, Brother Hagmann. It's called The Desire of the Ages, Volume 3, Conflict of the Desire of the Ages. It's an amazing book, quite old too. Old text. If you read old text, you find a lot through them. But anyway, truth. This is when Jesus was teaching the first time in the temple in Jerusalem. And all the while Jesus was at Jerusalem during the feast, he was shadowed by spies. Day after day, new schemes to silence him were tried. The priests and the rulers were watching to entrap him. And believe me, they were. They were planning to stop him by violence, but this was not all. They wanted to humble this Galilean rabbi before the people. Now get this, they wanted to humble the God of glory, okay? On the first day of his presence of the feast, the rulers had come to him demanding by what authority he taught. He wished to divert attention from him. They did. They wanted to draw attention away from him to the question of his right to teach, and thus to their own importance and authority. Now, they're questioning God Almighty, and don't think they don't question us. My teaching is not mine, said Jesus, but his that sent me. If any man willeth to do his will, he shall know of the teaching, whether it be of God or whether I speak from myself. This is John 7:16. The question that Jesus met by not answering these petty objections was opening up the truth, the vital to the salvation of the soul, the perception and the appreciation of truth. Now this is, folks, is what the Hagmanns are all about, truth. And Jesus said it depends less upon the mind than upon the heart. Truth must be received into the soul.
Very much.
Yes, ma'am, because it claims homage of the will.
That's
And
right.
if truth could be submitted to the brain, okay, that's reason, pride would be no hindrance in any way. But truth needs to be received through the work of the grace of the heart, and is received, and its reception depends upon the renunciation of every sin that the Spirit of God reveals, and that means people repent. And these chapters now are based upon John chapter 7, verses 16 and 36. And come on now, this is how we're going to fight. John chapter 7, verses 40 through 53. John chapter 8, 1 through 11. And this is where Jesus teaches in the temple. And you've got to look at what the Hagmanns are doing. They are bringing the Word of God to us. Truth. This is what we, as a people, must accept. Christians and people that live on this earth. Truth. Now, the test by which a true teacher might be distinguished from a deceiver. Now, we're going to read John chapter 7, verse 18. He that speaketh from himself seeketh his own glory. But he that seeketh the glory of him that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. So that means that he that seeketh his own glory is speaking only from himself. The spirit
Indeed.
of self-seeking betrays its own origins. But Christ was seeking the glory of God. He spoke the words of God. So, to what I say to Mr. Stevens, you unbeliever, they claim an utterance or a knowledge of what the origin of Christ should be, but they are in utter ignorance of it. If they had lived in accordance with the will of God, they would have known his Son when he manifests himself unto them. So, man, what I say also to you, if you want to identify Christ, you go to Isaiah chapter the chapter 60, the 61st chapter of Isaiah, and there Jesus testifies on the very work he did. And also in chapter 53, Isaiah, it sets forth his rejection and sufferings in this world. And chapter 59 describes the characters of the priests and the rabbis. So by God, let me tell you something. It's easy to put somebody down. But when you walk the walk, you've got to talk the talk. And the Hagmanns, I'd walk through the flames of hell any day with you, brothers, because you are true in the Word of God. You stand fast. You hold your head up proud, because you have nothing to look down upon. These people that are mockers, they're going to mock us no matter what. So you hang on to your britches. It's going to be a bumpy ride. That's all I got to say, and God bless and keep you. My word is on you, and stay fast and stay strong. That's all I'm going to say. We've got a busy battle ahead of us, brothers, and I love you. God bless.
We love you too, and God bless you too. And you're right. We do have a very busy battle and a stressful, just the tough walk ahead, and we're going to have to see this thing through to the end. And we appreciate your call so much, and thank you. We're going to go here to a caller calling in from Skype. Next, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. How are you doing tonight, caller? 661. Going once, 661.
We might be talking to ourselves.
I don't know.
Caller from Skype, you're up.
And we're not hearing audio from you if you are talking.
All right.
I'll put you back on hold and come back to you here. Let's see. Okay. We're going to go to 407 next. Thank you for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, good evening, guys. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good. What's up, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I hope you guys had a great holiday, and I'm in Florida, and I felt no earthquake where I'm at in Central, so I don't know what that was all about. It's pretty crazy. I didn't even hear about it, actually. Also, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on something. I actually had watched a documentary, and forgive me because I've been trying to remember. You guys did a World War II show like a month ago where you guys were only talking about World War II, and there was something that I caught notice of, and I wanted to, of a documentary that I saw, and basically it was a war that never was or something like that, where Hitler actually bombed a city. And forgive me, I've tried to look up for the documentary. I can't find it. He actually bombed a city somewhere, and they actually occupied the city, and they were trying to get people to fight back, and nobody would fight back, and they were sitting around for 8 months. And supposedly this was around like September, and they were waiting on something to happen. And I think someone got overthrown, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Someone got overthrown, and that's how Churchill got in place. And then all of a sudden, that's when the fight started. And I was wondering what you guys' thoughts on that were when I thought about that. The fact that Bush actually waited 8 months before he invaded Iraq in September. And you guys had also brought up the fact that, Obama was going to do this thing in Syria, but then all of a sudden it just got stopped. Everything just got stopped in its tracks. And I would like to see, it seems like this 8 months thing going into fruition again, to where maybe we should pay attention to the Syria thing right around that time, March, April-ish time. That's what I'm thinking in my head. So just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on that.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I'm not exactly certain how to couch this, I suppose. I think that we let me take Syria first. I think that if we look at Syria, it's got the globalist planners' fingerprints all over it, and we can see that through a number of things. Obviously, the fact that they have not given up, that they're after Assad for reasons that are very much reminiscent of the Iraq invasion. You've got you've got ISIS, the acronym for the terrorist organizations, which that should raise some eyebrows by itself. for those in the know about the Illuminati. Now, with respect to the Second World War, of course, there is a book out about Winston Churchill, the flawed genius of World War II, and I do believe that there's some revisionist history taking place with respect to this, but the timeline, I don't know. I'm more concerned about the timeline with respect to Pearl Harbor engaging the United States into the Second World War, and perhaps that's what you were listening to, because we did a show on Pearl Harbor. Now, we had known about this. The United States had known about Pearl Harbor months in advance, and of course, I don't have my notes here in front of me about Pearl Harbor. It's an interesting story where the fleet was moved from the safety of the west coast of the United States to Pearl Harbor, and it was consolidated for easy bombing. And of course, we had just recently, like 4 years ago, had one cable declassified out of 20-some thousand cables, saying that the cables, the communications are still classified. 70 years after the event, 72 years after the event, or 73 years, it should speak volumes. So, having said that, the 8 months, I'm not certain about. But yes, you're correct in watching the template, and I do believe there's a template, a globalist template, that they're using, and it's actively engaged in Syria. But you know what we'll do? We're gonna do some research on the 8 months or the time frame to see if there's any correlation between Syria and work backwards. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate the answer. And another thing I was wondering about, I have a lot of close friends in Hawaii, a lot of close friends. And when you hear about the Fukushima stuff and you guys talk about it hitting the West Coast, I think about my friends, and I tell them, be careful when you're in the water, this and that. But I see that you guys put an immense importance on the West Coast, but I haven't really heard anybody say anything about Hawaii or, places like Samoa, places in between that would obviously get hit earlier and sooner and have obviously been exposed to it a lot longer than even the West Coast. And I'm wondering why we haven't really heard any reports on that. And I ask them over there, and they say, they get small reports, but they don't really hear too much about it.
Well, we've reported on things as they have came in, and from radioactive grass in Illinois to the same things being seen in I think it was Vermont after the disaster, to what Stan talked about this last Tuesday, which was how the jet stream was taking the air from Japan and it was pushing it right down into the Philippines, into the different areas down there near China. And it depends on the wind flow, and it depends on the concentration in the air of how this radiation is moving. Now, we know that there are the reactors are spent. They're probably in the ground. And how it's being released, unfortunately, TEMCO's not too forthcoming with what I think all the sensors or monitors have been shut off in those regions since the earthquake. So we don't know, when the big air or the big radioactive concentration of air gets pushed up into the atmosphere, nor do we know where it's going to land. We just have to go by what is being reported on at different time periods. And also doing research. I mean, people want to know or learn about Fukushima, just search that word every day in the search engine, and you can use the search tools for anything reported in the last 24 hours, or that you can have a search filter on there to make it more specific. And that is a great way for people to stay informed on what's going on and not having to rely on news media or other outlets to give them
Joe
info.
and caller, we are preparing or attempting now to vet a particular source about Fukushima and about the real issues behind that. Apparently there's misinformation, dramatic misinformation and disinformation about this. There are some Freedom of Information Act requests that have been fulfilled that have not been made public, and that's what we're after. And that's thanks to the listeners. And of course, we're trying to get somebody very, very keyed into what's really taking place to comment on what's going on. And if they have government documents, then we want them on our program to expose what they've learned. So, indeed, yeah.
Awesome.
But
well, thank you very much. I guess
airflow. Yes.
Well, I guess the last thing I'd like to say is I appreciate everything you guys do, and I actually took advantage of the deal that you guys had, where you said I heard it on the Hagmans, and I paid, I'll say, like $30, shipping and handling and all, and I got the Exo Vaticana, Petrus Romanus, Earth's Earliest Ages, and Beast Tech, plus 2 3-hour DVDs, and it was an amazing deal. I took advantage of it, and I've had my nose in them ever since, and my baby actually surprised me and got me Dare to Prepare for Christmas as well. So it was a very
great.
Hagmann and Hagmann Christmas around here. So
great. Well,
we
fantastic.
Appreciate it very much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And I also made a friend. I also made a friend at American Survival Wholesale as well. It's a very, very cool guy, and told me I can call him anytime just to chit chat, which I thought was pretty awesome. So. God bless you guys.
Caller, do me one favor. You're the last caller of the night, and also since you've made the investment, do me one favor. Just send me an email as soon as you can, so I don't lose it. And in the subject line, just put Dare to Prepare, and just and I'm going to send you an email back. And there's a reason for this, given the fact that you, like I, bought the same package. I just wanted to point something out to you. So do me a favor and send me an email. My email's email is visible there at HomelandSecurityUS.com. It's on the top left. Just drop me an email. Subject line: Dare to Prepare. I want to point something out to you about that package that you received. I think you'll be impressed. So God bless you, my friend.
Okay, will do. God bless you guys.
Thank you, man. And by the way, Joe, that caller was talking about too, and we did the show on this. The cables that were just declassified. Why about Pearl Harbor? And people will poo-poo this, but I think the question has to be asked: why have they? Do they still have 26,581 intercepts that are still classified about Pearl Harbor? Let me rephrase that. In 1979, the NSA released 2,413 JN-25 orders. Now, the NSA said that we know now that they contain important details concerning the existence, organizations, and so on of the Pearl Harbor Strike Force about Japan. But of over 1,000 radio messages sent by Tokyo to the attack fleet, only 20 are in the National Archives. All messages to the attack fleet were sent several times. So you're looking at an extremely large number of radio traffic. You're looking at a large number of cables. And we have not, the United States, that is, has not declassified any of this. So my question is, what do they continue to hide? And you can compare this to the Saudi Arabia, the 9/11 Commission with Saudi Arabia, the 28 pages that have been redacted from the official 9/11 report that only certain members of Congress have seen. Why are they refusing to release that? And finally, everyone could say, well, you're just a conspiracy nut. You're seeing conspiracies and everything. But I think really the truth is in the details. The devil is in the details. Truly the devil is in the details with both Pearl Harbor and with 9/11. And we're going to keep pressing forward. And also the Fukushima, we need to bring someone forward to talk about the government documents that are reportedly out there and to get the real information about what's really taking place at Fukushima. So with that, I'm done.
Oh, finally, you're done. No, I'm kidding. It's been a great show. It's been, to me, it feels like it's a different show than the rest of the week, a different pace at least, but it's okay. We have some of these different shows at times, and I want to thank everybody for listening and hanging in there with us, all the callers. We had a great bank of callers tonight, and sorry we didn't get to the ones still on hold. I took some of the area codes down, so hopefully next time we take calls we can get to you first. And God bless each and every one of you. Until tomorrow, we have V coming on with
Ken Shorjan, and also Andy Sutton. You're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Do not miss it. God bless each and every one of you. Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.